Play of the day during the Sports Bash with me, Mike Gill, every weekday. Well, we are live on a Tuesday edition of the Sports Bash. 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video on the Twitter X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Hopefully everybody had a great Memorial Day weekend. It was not the beach weather, but it was nice enough that people were out and about. Holy mackerel, it was crowded out on Saturday. Didn't leave the house on Sunday. I said I saw enough of the people for one day, so I stayed in on Saturday, watched the Phils game back on the porch, and then yesterday bounced out for a little bit because I figured the towns would be emptied out a little bit. But Didn't have like beachy weather, just kind of like a chill in the air. So that made it a great weekend for the businesses, I would imagine, because, hey, it's not a beach day, but I want to get outside. So it was packed out when I was driving around all day on Saturday. Good to see a lot of people. Ran into a bunch of people Saturday out and about. Phil's. One thing that should be outlawed is East Coast teams having to play on the West Coast during a holiday weekend, right? You're out and about, even if you get like a 4 o'clock in the afternoon game, you get that at the places. Some of the establishments maybe want a little crowd for the 7 o'clock Phillies game. Give people a reason to like, hey, let's meet out, watch the game. Now, I don't think a lot of these places that I went to needed any help. They didn't need the Phillies to help them. It was packed enough. But, everybody's standing around kind of just like looking up at the TV like, hey, no Phils. They had those 10 o'clock games. Then on Sunday, they had the 4 o'clock Sunday game. Normally that's a 1:35 pitch when it's on the East Coast here in Philadelphia. We got a 4:05 Sunday game. So that kind of had you waiting all day long on Sunday like, all right, let's get to the Phils game. And then it was a disappointment. It's a game on Sunday that you look at, and is that the kind of game that you worry about come playoff time? You look at this team, they won 9 in a row. They're bound to lose a game. And, of course, it happens. You're going to lose a game even against bad teams. And Oakland had been, on a big losing streak themselves. And then you play that game on Sunday, and you're like, man, like, game they probably could have won or should have won if you look back at it, and we will in just a second. 5-4 the loss. They give up 11 hits in the game. It's a day where when you just open, you probably didn't open the newspaper, but when you looked at the pitching matchup, you was in that game. And he throws 7 innings with 10 strikeouts. I mean, he was masterful after that first inning. He gives up the 3 runs in the first inning, and then he absolutely shuts down the Athletics the rest of the day, just absolutely dominated them with 10 strikeouts. In fact, we hit a live bet in the middle of the game with 6 or more strikeouts even after the first inning, and he was just excellent after that. But that's the game, right? You get to the 8th, you bring in Strom, and Strom, who's been pretty steady for the most part, has a bad day. It's just like the playoffs last year. Bad day to have a bad day, right? 1 inning, 2 hits, couple runs against a team like the Athletics, who, listen, they have a decent – that kid at the top of the lineup, Wilson, is just outstanding, man. He is unbelievable. Think about this. In today's game, the dude's hitting 350. 350. With a 393 on-base percentage. He had a home run in the game. He had 3 hits in the day. It was, that kid is absolutely a stud. Rooker can play. Soderstrom's a high pick. They got Kurtz, the other guy, is a high first-round pick for them. Butler, they signed to well. They got a couple guys in the offense that can swing the bat, but their pitching's their problem. You can't count on, right, if you're the Phillies, you can't count on facing bullpens like the Athletics in the playoffs. That's the big picture takeaway from this weekend for me anyway, is that, Philadelphia goes out there and wins the series against Oakland. But almost in every single game, in fact, I think in every single game, the reason they won the games is because they got to the Oakland bullpen. Now, that's the plan. Get into these other teams' bullpens. Oakland just has a really bad bullpen. And the Phillies prospered from them having a really bad bullpen. You go back to the game on Friday night, you're up 1-0, and then you go up 4-0 in the game, and you get those 3 runs in the 9th, basically because of a couple, they get into the Athletics bullpen. You get a couple off of Miller, which is an interesting topic that we're going to get into. Because Mason Miller, by all accounts, if Mason Miller were to get traded, he would be probably the most expensive piece on the trade market, right? If you were to trade for somebody and you're Philadelphia, and we have a poll question right now, you can vote at Mike Gill Show on the Twitter X platform. So get on there and vote. Let us know what you're thinking. If the Phillies made $1 one trade and one trade only right now, what do they need to get? What's the one? At Mike Gill Show, at 973 ESPN. Get on over there and vote right now. If the Phillies make one trade and one trade only, what do they need to get? And right now we got a runaway. Bullpen arm, center field upgrade, left field upgrade, or other listed below. Right now, 81% of the voters are going in one direction right now. Do you have a guess at where those voters are all hitting the vote button at right now?
Well, if they're not going with bullpen, then I have a lot of questions about their sanity.
Well, they are. They're going bullpen. 81% right now are saying they need a bullpen arm. And is that based on what we saw this weekend? Friday night, you go into the game with a 4-0 lead with Jordan Romano, who, by the way, has been pretty well for you to get job done, so much so that they had to bring Tanner Banks in to save that game. And Banks gets the strikeout of Lawrence Butler. That was on Friday night. On Saturday, when you go to the game on Saturday, you think about this. That's a game that you lose 9-6 on a day where, you win 9-6 on a day where you had a rough outing from Christopher Sanchez. He had a tough time at the office. He was just, I don't know if it was the mound. I know Wheeler had commented on the mound from Friday night. He said it was terrible.
Yeah, the whole thing apparently all weekend was every pitcher complained about that mound.
Now, my question about that is this. I know it's a minor league park.
Right.
And they mentioned that there's 150 games being played there. So basically,
Correct.
When the A's are there, they're there. And then when they leave, the minor league team comes and they play there.
Right.
So there's basically someone playing on that field almost every single day. My question is, have other teams complained about the mound this year? I have not heard, everybody's going in there to play. It's not just the Phillies. When other teams have gone to play the Athletics, have they been complaining about the mound?
I mean, I have to do some further digging, but I know Matt Gelb wrote in his article saying that there have been other pitchers who have complained.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if it's is it a lot of pitchers? Is it every team has a pitcher? Because for the Phillies,
did Sanchez comment on it? Because I know Wheeler did. It was the
Sanchez
quote
did.
that they used. They do the whatever sponsor quote of the game, and it was Zach Wheeler saying the mound was terrible. I mean, that's a pretty blatant come out and just blasting someone's mound.
Yeah, Sanchez said he couldn't find his footing. Is the quote that I saw.
Now, I know, listen, that is a thing. If you're a pitcher, the mound is something. I mean, if it's too hard, if it's too soft, sometimes you get a soft landing spot. Another problem sometimes is when you're a taller pitcher and there's a shorter pitcher, and then the landing spots are in two different spots. Now, at a big league level, you generally don't have that problem because they're using clay,
right,
which you can kind of fix pretty easily, as opposed to like a dirt mound where, hey, where that landing spot is, that's where the hole is, and you guys are like, the tall guy and the short guy are like fighting for the landing spot.
So if you remember on Saturday night, Sanchez a couple times was double, triple digging into the mound where his plant leg was to try to
He just looked uncomfortable all night.
Yeah, so, obviously that was a problem for him. Romano, remember, he had mechanical issues, he said earlier this year. Did maybe him coming in Friday with that bad mound impact him maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard much about the mound. I didn't hear what Sanchez had to say about the mound. I did see the quote from Wheeler. I'm wondering, because that game on Saturday night, Sanchez was just erratic. He
was
could
never right.
not. 83 pitches, 49 strikes. He did have 6 strikeouts, but he was all over the place. They brought Ruiz in. He couldn't get the job done. Hernandez came in, did a job. Joe Ross, again, gave up a run. And then you got deep into the bullpen. I got to give it, who was the winner of the weekend was Tanner Banks.
Yeah.
So he pitched Friday night, got the save. And I thought on Saturday, he comes in another spot, gets 2 strikeouts in the inning that he pitched, 16 pitches, 13 strikes. Question with Tanner Banks is, what is his ceiling? What is his, leverage ceiling? How high up the food chain can Tanner Banks go in terms of importance? To me, Banks kind of profiles as that, hey, he's kind of like, the sixth inning, or he's out there to get just a couple lefties out, and then that's it. Has he proven to the Phillies over this weekend that he can go into some higher leverage spots? I don't know that they're there. Kirkgreen has pitched well. He pitched well this weekend. Lazard, by the way, came in and had to close that game out. They scored the 3 runs in the ninth to tie the game. That leads us to another topic of conversation, because in the game on Friday, they got 3 runs off of Mason Miller, one of which came off of a single from Johan Rojas.
Right.
I mean, if I'm looking to trade for somebody and I say, I just watched this guy pitch against my team and he couldn't get Rojas out, I mean, does that give you a lot of hope for a guy to come in and nail down, Game 3 of the National League Championship Series? Now, I'm not going to go too much off of Miller having a rough weekend because his stuff is really good. You can see he's throwing 102 miles an hour. He had not pitched from Friday night. I think they said he hadn't pitched in like 5 days, and he's only pitched twice the entire month?
Yeah, he hasn't pitched much at all this month.
How is that possible? I know they don't get a lot of save opportunities. Still, there are times where you're like, okay, we're not getting a lot of save opportunity. This guy just needs to get some work. Let's just throw him out there. Well, he pitched twice in the entire month and did not look great on Friday night. And then Saturday, he gives up another run, the 3-run homer to, who had that? Kepler, right?
Kepler, yeah.
It was so long ago, it feels like.
Well,
the Sunday game was so long ago, it feels like, right?
It is Tuesday. So.
The fact that they didn't play yesterday, it feels like that game was like, and then, so the bullpen in the game on Saturday, right? That Saturday game was when Sanchez pitched. Right. They end up giving up, they gave up 4 earned runs in the game, so 2 of the runs were unearned in that game on Saturday night. I'm trying to go back to the defense in that game, because the one game, which game was that where Marsh threw the guy out at the plate? Was that in the game on Saturday night? I think it was.
It was Saturday night, yeah. Well, that was what helped save the game, because remember, you had, initially, they should have scored before that play, but remember, the guy came up lame, running from second to third. They had to bring in a pinch runner for the man on second. So that's why they had a different guy on third base. Then Marsh threw that laser to home plate, which basically saved the game.
Yeah. Well, listen, Marsh made the play of the game with the throw out there. That saves the game, essentially. Terry and Galloway, do you think Rojas was safe at second base? Talk about the game on Sunday, I guess, the stolen base. He gets thrown out at second base to end the game. How often do you see that?
I thought he was safe. I felt that there was a couple angles where it looked like he reached around, got the base
easy there
before. Very funny. Before he got the tag on him. But
I would say if they called him out, they couldn't change the call. I could not see the video evidence to change the call.
I mean, I saw it, but then again, obviously, Mike, that sometimes these guys, they get more camera angles than we do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was inconclusive that he was in there. I mean, some of the angles he looked dead out, and then like one of them you'd be like, there he looks like he's safe. But the one angle that looked like he was safe, it was from behind his hand, so you couldn't see if his hand was flush on the bag yet.
Right.
So you couldn't tell if his hand was up against the bag or if there was a gap in there. But on that one, it looked like it was safe, but you couldn't tell if he was on the bag or not. But here would be my question on that. Rojas goes in the game to pinch run. They throw over once. He ends up stealing on the next pitch. They throw a pitch high and away. The whole world knew he was stealing on that play. So, maybe pick a different pitch to go on. Hey, make him go home first, see what he's going with, see what his move looks like. See what is, if he's going to go with a slide step or whatever. He took off on the first pitch that he was eligible to, and the play at second base is a little closer than you would have liked. But, hey, they lost the game. You need to lose one every now and then. But let's take it to tonight a little bit. By the way, Glenn is chiming in on the Twitter X platform, at Mike Gill Show. He says it's a glaring need, but center field is a close second. So he's paying, hey, if you're picking one, bullpen arm, but center field upgrade, Marsh Rojas, is a close second. I would ask this question. has Marsh kind of settled back in as, okay, he had a really rough start, but he settled himself into this season now? Do we feel that the Marsh-Rojas – I don't think it's good enough in the playoffs. I think this Marsh-Rojas thing is not a – I would say this question, though. Okay, I'm going to throw this out there. I was thinking about this today. I saw something on social media that somebody side-by-sided Marsh and Victorino. And basically, very similar stats.
Okay.
The 08 Phillies team had Shane Victorino playing center field. The Phillies have this Marsh-Rojas thing. Would we say that, well, the Phillies got by with Victorino and won a World Series? Do we look at Victorino as a similar outfield center fielder and that you can win with a guy like that?
We don't look at it the same way because Victorino was one player. You're talking about two guys having to combine for a role. Victorino was a much more reliable fielder than Brandon Marsh has ever been. Mm-hmm. And frankly, while Victorino's stats were not elite, Victorino had a bunch of clutch moments.
He did
during his Phillies career. Like, when was the last time, aside from the throwing the guy out at home, when has Marsh?
Well, Friday night was the Rojas game.
Right.
He makes the Angel in the outfield catch.
Right.
Friday night. I mean, that was unbelievable. He makes the play Friday night, the Angels in the outfield, where he gets twisted and turned and somehow comes back and makes that catch. Then he gets the base hit to basically, I think that was the game-winning hit, right? He knocked in somebody.
But do you consider Rojas a guy you can depend on?
I do not. No.
Right. So then neither one of those guys are guys that you look at as being guys. Like Victorino, when he came out the bat, yeah, he might have had a whatever batting average, but you knew when he came up, he had a history of getting big hits. You knew he could do it again.
I'm going to go back to Shane Victorino's 08 season for the Phillies and see, where he was in that season. Because I feel like he was also, and Marsh is this to some extent, kind of an energy guy, a clubhouse guy. 08 Phillies, Victorino hit .293 with 14 homers. It's way better than what Marsh is. By the way, a .352 on base percentage. So in 08, when they won the World Series, he was a better player that year than he was for his career.
Right.
And he also won the Gold Glove that year.
Right. Again, it goes back to the whole, he is better in center field defensively. Like, Rojas is at least in the Victorino conversation in terms of defense.
Yeah, he's very good when he's got his head on.
But it's just the bat is the inconsistent problem with Rojas, and I feel like Marsh is really only on this team because he's a better hitter than Rojas.
By the way, Jeff checks in. Bullpen. Who do we trust in that pen anymore? I'm losing faith in Strom as well. They're going to need arms to make a run. That's from Jeff. Yeah, who do we trust? That's a good question. After watching up to Memorial Day weekend now, you've got up to Memorial Day weekend, how many guys in that bullpen do you really trust? Maybe a half?
I mean,
is it even a half? Or do you trust Romano?
No.
Do you trust Kerkering?
Not really.
And I like Kerkering a lot. I can't say that I have unabashed trust in him. You trust Strom?
Yes. I think the last couple of outings he has had has been a byproduct of him being overused.
Strom?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's going to be the case, though. It's only May 27th. His usage probably not going to go down.
No, but that's the part of the problem with the bullpen. That is, if you depend too much on one guy, he's going to wear out.
Anybody else that I'm missing? Ruiz?
That's a good joke.
Hernandez?
Funny.
Lazar?
Please.
Tanner Banks?
Meh.
Yeah, that's what you're dealing with right now. 609-403-0973. Dan and EHT is Banks Tug McGraw 2.0. Good joke there, Dan. He did get the save on Friday night.
He did.
And he struck out Lawrence Butler, who, last year that game against the Phillies in the series finale at Citizens Bank Park had 3 homers in that game. Rooker had 2, and then they had somebody else who had 2. I was at that game. They beat the Phillies 18-3.
I will say, I don't know if this is true or not, but they brought up on the Philly Show podcast, Mike, that all the pitchers for the Phillies who pitched well this weekend are all guys who were recently in the minor leagues. So that, guys.
Who's that?
What's that?
Who's that?
All the Phillies pitchers who played well this weekend. They've all pitched in the minor leagues in recent years.
all the Phillies pitchers who pitched well.
Right, like Lazar, Banks.
Well,
Like-
Banks they got from the White Sox.
Right, but he was in the minor leagues a couple years ago.
Lazar, yeah, he's kind of a journeyman. Kirkering
Kirkring.
had a good game. Good
So,
weekend.
So the theory was they were throwing out there was that, hey, maybe because these guys are used to lousy mounds that they compensated better than the other
I'm not
guys.
going with that one. That one.
You're not buying that one?
No. Throw that one out. Shaner and EHC, I like them both. I appreciate both of them for different reasons. The Flying Hawaiian will always be near and dear, but Marsh can be a part of a team that has the ultimate success. Forget the negatives. Let's see the positives. Happy Fake Monday, fellas. Shaner and EHT. Yeah, I mean, listen, Marsh has been on a team. We were having this debate yesterday, okay? We'll see what you think, everybody out there. There's been some murmurs and some rumors about the Phillies trying to get Hoskins back. Have you seen any of this?
I have seen some of those, yeah.
So I said I would rather Schwarber play left field and keep Harper at first and then have Hoskins be the DH. I would rather Schwarber play left field than Hoskins play first base. Where would you fall on that one?
I see the reasoning in what you're saying. I just don't see, unless Hoskins can suddenly play center field, I don't see
Hoskins?
I'm saying suddenly if he could play center field, which he can't.
Yeah, of course I was going to say. You're not even – I mean, they played him in left field one time for a season. When he first came up, he was horrendous out there. You're not going to play him in center field.
No, to me, he has no defensive value. There's
that's my point.
Scenario where you could put him on the field and feel comfortable.
That's my point, is I would rather see if they – let's say they traded for Hoskins. I would rather move Schwarber back to left field than play Hoskins at first base. I would just DH Hoskins and play Schwarber in left. People say,
you have to.
Schwarber's terrible out there. They went to the World Series with him playing left field. And then the retort would be they went to the World Series with Hoskins playing first base. I understand that. So I have two guys who are not good defensively. If I have to pick one,
right,
I would put Schwarber in left field more often than I would play Hoskins at first base. I think Schwarber is a more capable left fielder than Hoskins is at first base.
Well, either way, you'll see Hoskins this weekend.
Brewers are in town. Yep, Phils and Braves tonight. It's a big one. We're going to look at that matchup and why it's so important. That's coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. All right, 2:30 Tuesday, short week this week. Phils and Braves. So it's a big one. Braves get Strider tonight, right? He's pitching versus Strider versus Ranger. Right now, Ranger's been pitching outstanding.
Ranger has found his groove.
Phillies are going to have some tough decisions to make here with Ranger pitching so well. He seems like the guy that everybody just assumes is going to go to the bullpen. You got Painter. He pitched well his last outing. By the way, Mick Abel pitched well in his most recent AAA outing. So you got that. Phillies are going to have a lot of decisions to make with this fifth spot in the rotation. Do they go with a six-man rotation? Is Ranger the odd man out? Ranger will pitch tonight. He's had 3 consecutive quality starts since coming back. He had the bad start when he first came back. It was just an iffy start. His last 3 starts have been great, though. Now he pitched against Colorado in his last outing.
I was going to ask you, how does the Nola not being able to have his throwing session on the weekend because of his right ankle still bothering him?
Yeah.
How did that possibly impact things moving forward?
Good question. Not sure. How much are they just kind of being, we got to be overly cautious with this? How much is this related to him not pitching all that well and them just kind of being like, hey, you know what? Let's take a little bit more time. Let's, because I suggested when this happened that, we won't be surprised if he doesn't come right back. They suggested, he'll be back within the 15 days. We're not worried about that at all. Well, here we are, and now he's not. Now, did the Phillies reset? Because didn't they say the other day that they were sending Walker back to the bullpen?
Yeah, but now Walker's back in the rotation. He's scheduled to start on, what is that?
Tomorrow,
Friday.
right?
Walker says
Friday against the Brewers.
The Brewers.
All right, yeah, and he's scheduled to start on Thursday the 5th against Toronto, too. Because I was wondering, they said the other day that they were moving Walker back.
Right.
I was wondering if they were then going to call Abel back up. And just because they said they were going to, we're going to keep Walker there. He's not going to keep going back into the starting rotation, right?
Well, that changed.
And now that's changed. Well, or do you see, this is where I think they have to now say, hey, Walker, you go back to the bullpen. I don't need Max Lazar or Ruiz up here,
right.
One of those guys, or Hernandez. Let Walker start to get into that role. You're doing your team a disservice if you can't find out whether Walker can handle that role or not. You have another starting pitcher. So just call Abel up, let him pitch those games, and then have Walker usurp somebody in the bullpen to find out whether or not Walker is a piece that can either A, help you, or B, that you can maybe try to trade to a team that is desperate for pitching. Now, I guess the retort to that would be, do the Phillies have concern that if Abel comes up, that enough, in other words, did they get calls? Did they get people saying, hey, would you guys be interested in moving Abel? To where people saw enough of him in that one start that they don't want to re-throw him out there in the event that he doesn't pitch well, and that maybe they liked some of the calls that they got and said, man, we got some interesting calls about Abel. Let's not bring him back up and put him out there against some of these better, because, he pitched against the Pirates. This time he would be pitching against a Brewers team that's got a little bit more offense.
And Rob Thompson made the interesting comment the other day, Mike, where he said he was very glad to see how Abel pitched in his first game back at the minor leagues, because Thompson had told the media, he said that, a lot of times when guys have a good outing at the major league level, their first start back at the minors is a letdown. He says the fact that Abel went out there and was firing at all cylinders was a great sign. So was he saying it's a great sign because he's just making an observation, or is he making that saying, I might need to bring this guy back up here?
Listen, if I'm the Phillies, I'm taking a shot to see if Walker is a piece in my bullpen. Now, I personally am not bullish on that. I don't really feel great that I could trust Walker in big situations.
That's not like you can trust Ruiz or Lazar or Hernandez anymore.
I agree with that. I would say I would be willing to see Walker pitch in a bullpen role to see if he can be something, as opposed to Ruiz or Hernandez, who I don't have any confidence in those guys having a bigger role. Now, I don't think Walker's going to have a big role either, but I at least take a look at him. He's pitched well enough this year that he deserves, hey, let's see if you can be a factor in the bullpen, because we know he's not going to be a factor in the starting rotation.
Right.
So why waste his starts? All you're doing is now wasting starts. You have a young guy in Abel that I don't know that the Phillies are married to keeping this guy here. Like
No.
I think the Phillies would be okay with trading Mick Abel if they had to. Now we have the poll question up at Mike Gill Show. And right now, the question is, if the Phillies were to make one trade, what do they need to get? Okay? I capitalized those words. That's why I said them in that way. Votes are coming in. Bullpen arms winning 79%. Center field upgrade over Marsh Rojas, 14%. Upgrade over Kepler, 2.9%. And other has 2.9% of the vote. I don't even know what other might be.
Maybe, I don't know, backup catcher.
Now, Bob Wankel talked about on Friday that at what point is one of your possible upgrades, do you say, hey, Bryson Stott, we gotta think about something there?
I wouldn't do that. I think Stott has proven his value as a leadoff hitter at this point for this team. And you could make an argument he probably should be starting against left-handed pitching, but Rob Thompson keeps saying that he's sticking with this platoon because he can't keep Sosa on the bench for too long.
Well, I would throw this out at you, okay? Bryson Stott right now, 257, 316 on base. 316 is just not good enough.
Yeah, but if you take his numbers, and I'll pull them up, just as a leadoff hitter.
That's what I'm about to do.
He has done very well, specifically in that role.
I think he started off very well, and that got people. As the leadoff hitter, his on-base percentage, you ready for this? 293.
So it must have dropped then.
Precipitously, yeah. He got off to a hot start. Now, as the first batter of the game, his on-base percentage is 400. When he leads the game off, he's getting on base 40% of the time. But when he is hitting first as the leadoff man for the whole game, he's hitting 246 with a 293 on-base percentage. Not good.
No, it's not good.
So I feel like he got off to a good start in that role and then has kind of subsided in terms of the impact that he had. He got off to a good start. I will give him that. I was like, hey, this guy surprised me. But he has not done much in the last. In fact, if you go to his splits by month, in the last, let's see, the last 14 days, his on-base percentage is 270. In the last 28 days, you know what his on-base percentage is? 250.
It's unacceptable.
It's terrible. In his last 28 days, he's hitting 217 with a 253 on-base percentage and a 301 slug.
All right, so
14 strikeouts, by the way, in 83 at-bats. I mean, he's really slumping.
All right, so now that we have that information.
I will say, too,
yes,
March, April, he hit 297 with a 374 on-base percentage. Now in May, he's hitting 205 with a 235 on-base percentage. So he has really, really taken a nosedive. And you can't keep plugging that at the top of the lineup.
No. Now, with that being said, and I would have to look through all the teams out there to see who the second basemen are for some of these teams, but is there a scenario where you can pair Stott and Abel in a trade?
Stott and Abel, okay.
To get a right-handed second baseman. Like, is that a viable package to you?
I think Stott would have some value, but
he is
not
a first-round pick.
Yeah, I think that some other team might say, yes, first-round pick. He's been a winning player for you guys. I do think he might have a little value, but I don't think you're getting all that much for Bryson Stott. I think Abel would be the guy that a team would say we're interested in him.
You pair them together.
Yeah.
Not one or the other, because we know in sports, it's about the value of the deal, not just the individual player.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, with Stott leading off, it was a fun story. I give him credit. He exceeded my expectations when they moved him there, but you can't have an on-base percentage in the 200s as a leadoff man. To me, now I go back to the Hoskins thing, okay? And I'm just throwing Hoskins out there.
Hoskins play second base?
I forget who wrote the article about it. I don't even know that Hoskins is on the – I guess is he a free agent at the end of the year? I think so.
I'll pull it up.
I'm pretty sure he is. I think he had a player option, and he opted back in to stay with the Brewers just because he didn't have a good year last year. So I guess he opted back in, got paid some pretty good money, and he's having a pretty good year right now. But when Hoskins was here, I was not a fan of him hitting in the 2-hole. But if he came back, okay, let's just have some fun with that. If Rhys Hoskins came back, would you hit him number 2?
So you're saying...
Because you would have Turner. I would just hit Turner lead off and just keep him there. If you got another player, like a Rhys Hoskins. Now, I say Rhys Hoskins because right now he's hitting .287 with a .387 on-base percentage. One of the reasons why the Phillies liked hitting him number 2 is because he was an on-base guy, high on-base guy. And he's at .387 on base right now. So you would have Turner, Hoskins, Harper, Schwarber.
Interesting. My only problem with that is now you're falling into the trap where it only fixes one of your left-handed problems. Is that enough of a fix for you?
Well, what do you mean it only fixes one of your left-handed problems? It theoretically doesn't fix. Well, you would have Kepler would basically now that's not 100%. The Phillies could go about this in many ways. They could play Hoskins at first and move Harper to left field.
True.
Or you play Hoskins at first, Harper at first, and play Schwarber in left field.
Right.
And now Kepler's out of the lineup.
Now Kepler's out of the lineup.
Correct.
So now what you're doing is you're choosing.
You're adding one right-handed bat. You're taking Kepler out of the lineup. You're inserting Hoskins.
Right.
But this player, Hoskins, would be going into your top 4. Theoretically.
Into your top 4, theoretically. Mm-hmm. Now, the other question is...
Now, you could keep it with Stott at the leadoff spot, which I'm not really a proponent for. I would just hit Turner leadoff every day and just,
here's my question. Is there a possibility you could go Turner, Harper, Hoskins, Schwarber?
You could, but I think Harper likes hitting third. Schwarber and Harper hit well enough against lefties that having those two back-to-back isn't such a detriment against a left-handed pitcher.
So you're not worried about that.
Yeah. So, yes, you could theoretically go Turner. I just don't know that Hoskins in my 3-hole is as impactful. I think the thing that you like about Hoskins hitting in the 2-hole is his on-base percentage. Right? 387 on base with Turner 370 on base. Now you got two guys on base like 38% of the time, followed by Harper and Schwarber. So you're hoping to have 2 on-base guys high at the lineup, and now your 2 best hitters, Harper and Schwarber, with optimum chances to drive those guys in. I wouldn't mind finding an upgrade to Castellanos. I'm not saying get rid of him, but I wouldn't mind if he got bumped down another spot in the lineup, but
sure.
I'm not holding my breath on that one.
Well, I will say this, if you go back, the last thing is it's either 25 or 30 games. I have to pull up the stat again, but Trey Turner is saying like 390 over that run. So Turner has found his bat again. He is a guy that you can look at and be like, all right.
Hey, listen, I've been tough on Turner. I said I would amnesty him if I had the chance, and I probably still would, just because he's getting paid so much money. But that being said, 310 batting average, 365 on base. He's got 5 home runs. All of a sudden, the power stroke is starting to come back a little bit here. Turner has certainly had a nice little run here where batting average, on base, he's showing a little bit more power. He's stealing bases. He's got 14 stolen bases right now. He only had 19 all of last year. He really was not a stolen base threat after that injury last year. So if he could get himself, if he's on base 37, 38% of the time, and he gets himself back up to a 35, 40 stolen base guy, all right, that's why I'm saying I would just keep Turner in the leadoff spot. This whole thing with Stott, having to hit him leadoff, come on. I've had enough.
The ship has sailed.
Yeah, I think so. It was cute. It was a nice idea. Good effort. He does see a lot of pitches. He fouls a lot of pitches off. He takes a lot of pitches. So he has those qualities, but you got to get on base too.
So I'm going through all the teams who are near the bottom of the standings right now and see who their second basemen are. And this list is really bad, Mike. I mean, the options out there are not very good if you're trying to replace Stott right now.
You going to give me any?
The best one so far is Isaiah Kiner-Falefa.
Ooh, yeah, I'm out on that.
I mean,
now you're just talking about from the bad teams.
Just the bad teams. Just teams that are near the bottom of the standings.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, I don't think that would happen. I don't think they would be looking to trade to upgrade Bryson Stott. That's just something that Bob Wankel said. Listen, if you can't find a left fielder, you can't find a center fielder, and you need an upgrade, is that a position that you might say, hey, listen, Bryson Stott, we're not getting enough from that position at second base. Now, you have Sosa. So you have this platoon thing going. Is that good enough that you say, hey, we're okay playing him against righties and Sosa against lefties? I mean, I don't know.
If you start Turner moving forward every day as the leadoff hitter, right? If you do that moving forward, what do you do with Stott?
Problem with Stott, too, is he doesn't make a lot of money. Now, how much does that come into play, too? They got a lot of guys on this team that make a lot of money. He's not one of them.
Yeah, you got about 6-7 guys who account for almost $1 billion.
Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. You guys can chime in on the text board. We'll open that up, read off some text, 609-403-0973 on the text board. Hit us up there. If the Phillies make one trade, what do they need? Bullpen arm, center field upgrade, left field upgrade. Vote at Mike Gill Show. Right now, bullpen arm is winning 80% of the votes. And I can't really argue with those 80% of the people. I think the bullpen arm, watching this weekend, is the most pressing need for this team. And by far. And that's meaning I want to upgrade in center and left. I don't think I can get all three of these things. What do you guys say? Hit me up, 609-403-0973. Phillies mailbag with Frank. Eagles OTAs, Adam Kaplan, football at 4. The Phillies are back on the field. By the way, did anybody listening today run into any Eagles anywhere this weekend? I hear they were all over the place, right? Cooper DeJean was partying it all over the place. I saw Nick Sirianni was down in Avalon. His wife looked like she's kind of over the Eagles' chance.
Oh, really?
Oh, she looked like, okay, I've had enough of this. Jordan Mailata was over at had dinner at Nizam's in Egg Harbor Township.
Yeah.
Heard he was on the beach in Ocean City.
Sounds like he had good taste at Jordan Mailata.
Yeah, he went with the lamb chops.
Nice.
Yeah. From a source tells me he went with the lamb chops.
Mike
So any other Eagles bouncing around? I heard Sidney Brown was with Cooper at a couple places, bebopping and skit-scatting.
So the safeties are hanging out together.
Well, one's a corner.
Well, he could play safety.
Yeah.
Defensive backs.
Sidney Brown's a safety. But OTA started today, so I hope they got it all out of their system because they're up there at the Novacare. We'll get an update with Adam Kaplan coming up. Football at 4 on the way. Frank Close at 3. You guys next with the text board, 609-403-0973. All right, 2:53, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Mike Gill with you. 609-403-0973 on the text board. See or hear of any Eagles out and about this weekend? Did you see any?
I didn't.
They were everywhere. It seems like the Eagles were
apparently
everywhere.
the Eagles were everywhere I wasn't.
Yeah.
So,
well, you were out and about more than I was.
I mean, I was out and about some on Saturday, way more on Sunday.
Saturday I went out middle of the day, and then yesterday I was out for a little bit. Now, yesterday, so we went over to Margate yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Driving from our house, we're going over the Longport Bridge.
Okay.
There's a parade in Summers Point. And it crosses, what's that, Maryland Avenue where the bridge is, like where the Dairy Queen is?
Dairy Queen.
Yeah. Think about people trying to get on and off the island with the parade going down Maryland Avenue in Summers Point yesterday. The detours we were trying to take to get to the bridge.
Yeah.
Now, it started at Dawes Avenue, I guess where the school is, or somewhere around there. So we had to backtrack past Dawes Avenue to cross up to Bay Avenue. I said, hey, listen, I'm not knocking the parade or anything, but Maryland Avenue is kind of an artery to get in and out of the – so the line of cars trying to get off the island to cross over, they got to get to the parkway.
Sure.
Yeah, it was interesting. But a lot of nice ceremonies yesterday. We drove into Longport. They had theirs right there when we got into Longport yesterday. It was good to see a lot of people out and about, and a lot of the services yesterday that we saw for all the people who have fought for the country. We appreciate you. Frank, next. All right, hour two of the Sports Bash, and we've got the Phillies lineup out already here. We're going to get live reaction to this because there is a big change to the lineup. And I say a big change. It's definitely something, right? It's definitely a difference maker here. Not difference maker. It's definitely a different lineup, I should say, right? We'll get that to you in just a second. This hour of the show brought to you by Broadleaf's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating, plumbing, service, and installation for generations. Check them out at 609-390-3907, online, broadleafs.net. All right, Frank Close, the Phillies mailbag. I don't know if he's even seen the lineup, but we'll put it up on the screen right there for both of us to see here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. There you go. There's the lineup for the Phillies today. It is Stott, Turner, Harper, Schwarber, Bohm, Castellanos, Kepler, Realmuto, Marsh. So it sounds like the Phillies were listening to me. I said I'd like to see Castellanos moved out of that spot. And voila, they listened. Frank Close, the Phillies mailbag. 97.3 ESPN.com. Our Phillies insider answers your mailbag questions. 609-403-0973 if you have Phillies question. What is your immediate reaction to that, Frank, as the Phillies have promoted Bohm back to, the middle of that lineup, 3, 4, 5. Castellanos drops down to 6.
Well, I think Rob Thompson read the Phillies mailbag on 97.3 ESPN.com because a few hours ago I posted that this should be the lineup. So,
really? This is the exact lineup you went with?
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't get into, at the bottom, but I thought that it was time for Bohm to move up, and I thought that he was even due to move ahead of Nick Castellanos. I mean, you can't argue with Bohm's numbers. I mean, not to do the whole mailbag right now, but if you look at Alec Bohm's numbers, yeah, he had a pretty tough April, but he's been on fire in May. I mean, how do you keep someone who was hitting that well out of the lineup? I mean, when you look at Bohm's production and you look at JT Realmuto's production. I mean, Bohm in the month of April batting .341, 4 home runs, driven in 12. His OPS is .919. I mean, that's pretty good. That's the kind of player you want in the middle of your lineup. And the Phillies came out of spring training with him in the cleanup spot, so they obviously thought he had the ability. So now that he's kind of shown that he turned around that tough April, why not put him in the middle of the lineup? Now, they didn't have that whole configuration with Stott leading off and going Turner, Harper, Schwarber yet. That's kind of worked, so I would leave that alone. And then my thought was, we'll put Bohm behind them.
All right, well, I got a couple questions to bounce off you here. One, we were taking a look at Bryson Stott in the leadoff. It seemed that he got off to a good start in the leadoff spot, but those numbers have not stuck. His on-base percentage under 300. He has really kind of tailed off here in the last month. Are you keeping Stott in that leadoff role?
I think for now, yes. Looking at his splits, I mean, he has not had a good month of May. He had a really good month of April, but his month of May, just batting .205 in general, and the on-base percentage in the month of May is a putrid .235. So you need to do something there at some point, but I don't think that means you just move everybody up and then you're back to the lineup you started with, right?
Yeah.
But, it was going well for a while, and then he's definitely tailed off. Now, part of me wonders if the inconsistency of play has affected him. Is he the type of guy that needs to play every day? As you've kind of pointed out, he was kind of in a platoon, and the lineup was in a platoon. So, he's clearly done he started out doing a lot better against righties and lefties. Those numbers have actually kind of come a little bit closer to being closer to one another. Still better from the right side than the left, but yeah, he's not getting on base, at least in the month of May, to the clip that you'd want from your leadoff hitter.
Yeah, so you got Stott leading off, Turner 2, Harper 3, Schwarber 4, Bohm in the 5 hole tonight. Castellanos is now 6. Then Kepler, Realmuto, Marsh. You got Spencer Strider throwing tonight, so a right-handed pitcher for the Braves. We'll get into the mailbag questions here in just a second, but Stott there, Turner 2. Are you tempted, the way Turner's going, just to keep him in the leadoff spot?
I would. That's kind of what I thought the Phillies should have done to begin with. He's going to give you more consistency, I think, and I'm not a fan of flip-flopping the lineup every time that there's a platoon. So it's a big difference if you're batting Turner every day, or you're batting Stott every other day, or it's one day to the next. I do like the consistency. I personally would just move Stott down and slide everybody up. And I think we went into this season kind of asking the question, what, can Stott stick? As an organization that's got a middle infielder that's about to rise to the major leagues, that's something that they need to answer this year. So you need more consistency from, especially if Stott's going to be your leadoff hitter. I would personally go Turner. Turner's been doing very well, and of course Turner has been leading off against the lefties. I think he can lead off against the righties too. He's better than just being a platoon player.
All right, let's get to a mailbag question here, because we were talking a little bit about this one from Ryan. He said, I saw someone suggest the Phillies might trade for Hoskins. I don't know if it's might or that just a fun, they should consider it, but he's been pretty good with Milwaukee this year. Any chance, Ryan, with that message there? Yeah, Hoskins, his on-base percentage, 387. I was never a fan of him hitting in the 2-hole when he was here, but hey, how about a Turner, Hoskins, Harper, Schwarber top 4?
Yeah, so that idea came from Luke Arcani, our friend over at Crossing Broad, and we basically said, hey, look, Rhys Hoskins could play first, Kyle Schwarber could DH, and Harper could go to left or right. Well, I don't like that for a few reasons, and the main reason is basically why the Phillies moved on from Hoskins to begin with, and that's a matter of defense, right? You'd have to either put Kyle Schwarber in left field all the time or Bryce Harper in left field, and I don't think Schwarber is the answer, right? He's clearly been at his best when he was a designated hitter, and by the way, if you look at Schwarber's numbers, he's a negative .7 defensive WAR just for the little bit he's played in the field this year. He's barely played, and he is ranked the worst defender in all of baseball, despite that small sample size.
Who's that?
Schwarber.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, barely played.
Well, it's funny that you say that. We were debating the other day, Sunday. I said I would rather play Schwarber in left field than Hoskins at first base. I would just keep Harper at first, go back to playing Schwarber in left field. I know he's not great, but I'm saying that's how bad Hoskins was at first base, that I would rather play Schwarber in left field. I said, listen, you went to the World Series with him playing left field. How bad could he? I know he's not great, but he'll catch the ball in the air. That's all you're asking for at this point.
Well, I got a surprise for you, Mike, because if you compare Hoskins and Harper at first base, Hoskins has better stats defensively in terms of WAR than Bryce Harper does. So Harper's at a negative .4 for the season at first base. Hoskins at a negative .3. Now, I know these aren't perfect numbers, but there is a lot of work going into these defensive rankings now. So, but then I have to ask the question: well, how's Bryce Harper in the outfield? And Harper actually has been negative WAR in the outfield for the last 10 years. He has not had a positive defensive number for the last 10 years. You have to go all the way back to 2015 to have a positive number there. And last time he had a full year for the Phillies, he was negative 1.3 WAR in his last full year in the outfield. And even in the 8 games he played in the outfield before he got hurt in 22, he was negative .9. So Harper was not that. And
you'd also
to begin with.
You'd also be talking about most likely playing him in left field, where he really hasn't played all that much.
Yeah, so if you consider then lesser defense in left field, about the same defense, which isn't that great at first base, I don't know that there's a big enough plus coming from the defensive side to justify that. So
is a Hoskins deal even a possibility, or is it just for fun?
I think if the Brewers were out of contention, they would consider a move, but maybe even if they're in contention. Remember, they traded their closer a few years ago. Josh Hader, what was traded while they were still in contention. So I wouldn't put anything off the table with the Brewers. But I think given that his contract is up, he's somebody that maybe the Brewers would move, especially if they fall out of it. So, but I just don't think that this is the type of move the Phillies are looking to make. Now, Harper said he would do that, but that was for Pete Alonso, right? That was that this was going to be a permanent impact player coming back to the organization. A few-month rental of Rhys Hoskins, I don't know that he would feel the same way. I think they would just keep things alone. And hey, if we're in the business of adding ex-Phillies players that are popular, I'd rather see them get Andrew McCutchen to play left field from the right side to go along with Max Kepler there. And, the Pirates may or may not trade him. I don't think that they're looking to trade him. In fact, I think they have at least a handshake agreement not to trade McCutchen, but maybe you could talk McCutchen into coming over for a few months to try to win a World Series since if he thinks highly of Philadelphia. But
Yeah.
if that's what you're shopping for, ex-Phillies that are popular, I would pick him any day over Rhys Hoskins.
All right, Sean is listening, and he wants to know, is there any chance we could see Mick Abel in the bullpen or Justin Crawford called up by mid-June?
Well, to Mick Abel in the bullpen, that was something I was thinking of a few weeks ago, actually, Mike, when we were talking before they moved Seth Johnson to the bullpen. I was thinking that he could be a project that they move and make a reliever, but I don't think they want to do that yet. I think Mick Abel has the trade potential. If they're looking to add a real impact piece, he might be their best trade chip, given their depth that they have in starting pitching. And if you move him to the bullpen, you sort of reduce his value, I think, even to your own team or in trade for that matter. So I think they're going to try to keep him in place in the starting rotation and have somebody available, if nothing else, the moment that they need an arm in the starting rotation, whether it be because of a rain out and a rescheduled doubleheader, something along those lines that messes with the rotation. I think they'd like to keep him handy as a trade piece or for that. And Justin Crawford, maybe a few weeks ago I would have thought that that there was a possibility with that there, but he's actually been we've seen out of center field. Brandon Marsh has had a really good month of May, so I don't think that you want to see that. Now I'm just taking a quick look at his splits now. I'm just pulling them up on ESPN.com, but if you look for his month of May, he's batting .340 in the month of May. And so you saw Brandon Marsh make some nice plays too, including that throwing out that key base runner in what was it, the 9th inning or 10th inning? I forget what inning that was the other night in Sacramento. So I think you want to ride Brandon Marsh while he's hot. Before he got hot, I would have thought that Justin Crawford coming up might be a little bit more imminent. But I will say this: I think Crawford's probably your starting center fielder at least by next year. But I think Brandon Marsh would have to really cool off to the level that he's not helping them anymore. So, let's not forget that Marsh had that long offer in April before going on the injured list. So, but a very productive month of May from Marsh.
All right, we'll go to Michael in the mailbag. Says, why did JT play all 3 games against the Athletics? Shouldn't Marshawn have played the day game after the night game? Shouldn't Marshawn be playing more in general?
Yes, that's one of my pet peeves, right? But I was surprised at this one. I looked at the schedule and I had the thought, okay, Realmuto will have off Thursday in Colorado on the getaway day, and he'll also have off on Sunday, and having Monday off too. That's a good amount of time to recoup for the demands that the catching position has on the body. After the Phillies had won 9 in a row, I really thought that they were going to rest JT Realmuto on Sunday. They did not, and I can't help but thinking what would have happened if someone else came up in that second inning with the bases loaded and no outs. Now, JT Realmuto grounded into a double play. If it wasn't him, it probably would have been Alec Boehm, who had not been moved up back to the middle of the lineup yet, right? So maybe Boehm might have given them a different result. So, I mean, the reason why I think they played him, I think part of it was that Realmuto's been scuffling a little bit, and they wanted to get him the at-bats against the lefty pitcher on the mound. He's batting just 188 with the 525 OPS in his last 7 games. So I think they were maybe trying to get him out of that a little bit. But also, too, I think that the Phillies maybe thought that there was the day off and his body would recover then. But I think he needs to sit more often. I think you might get more from him offensively if he rests more often. We can't let a 30-something-year-old catcher play every single day. The human body is just not made for that, and I think baseball's history has shown us that.
Real quick, you mentioned Marsh, just to give people the last 28 days, Marsh is hitting .340 with a .404 on base, a .447 slug, and an .851 OPS. So Marsh, over the last 28 days, has kind of regained. We were talking about this earlier. Has Marsh kind of settled back in to this season as like, okay, he's at least giving you something, because he was terrible. He's up to 225, 314 on base. If you're looking at his numbers for the season, he's been awful. But the last 28 days, that's a pretty decent sample size. 340 with a .404 on base percentage, .447 slug, .851 OPS for Brandon Marsh. So that was from your question about Crawford there, because we got another question about Crawford who basically says, when will it be time for Crawford? He's hit 329 and none of this platoon BS, because Crawford absolutely feasts on left-handed pitching. Yeah, he's hitting over 400 against lefties at the AAA level.
Well, I think they're going to ride Marsh as long as he's hot. Now, Marsh was 0-4 for the month of April. He had 29 at-bats in April, and he didn't get a single hit. So, I mean, he could easily cool off again, I suppose. But, Justin Crawford is going to force his way into the major leagues really, really soon. I would expect to see him at some point, no matter what, even if they just use him for his speed down the stretch. And, they can add a couple extra players in September. Might it be someone like him who can steal some bases and you take onto your postseason roster, who can steal some bases and be a tremendous pinch runner? So, yeah, I think he's showing that the AAA level is beyond him in some ways. But without an injury or something that opens up a spot, I think they're kind of going to go with what they have for a while, especially if Marsh is hot. If Marsh has another 0-for month, well, then I think we're having a different conversation. But I think he's there and ready to come up whenever they need him.
Yeah, I think, right, if Marsh was scuffling and they needed to, find an answer, I think they would not hesitate to go to him. But while Marsh is going well here, I think they're going to give Marsh as long of a leash as possible. Now, if his leash was as long as it was in April and he was doing what he was doing in April, I think they would probably look to upgrade there. But the fact that he has kind of settled in you look at the numbers he's had over the last month, you really can't rip the guy, even though I don't trust that he's going to be that guy. But I think the Phillies will keep him in that spot for as long as he is performing like he is right now.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And then if you look at the other center fielder on the roster, Johan Rojas, he's batting just 171 in the month of May. So he had a really good month of April while Marsh was scuffling. He batted 288 in the month of April, but come May, not doing so hot. So if you have both of them kind of scuffling at the same time, which has happened, you need to get more out of that position, and they have somebody ready to plug in soon as possible. Or again, if there's another injury. They brought up Cal Stevenson last time Marsh got hurt. If there's another injury, I think they would go Crawford this time, even if it was through at left field. If Kepler got hurt, for example, hopefully he doesn't. But I think that he's the next outfielder coming up at this point.
All right, Frank, let's get a couple more questions in the mailbag here and check in on Kelly, who had a premonition. When is it time to move Alec Boehm back up in the lineup? And I guess we could ask, is this the time? Was now the time?
Yeah, absolutely. I just looked at the month of April. I think it's okay for him for us to say that he had a bad month. The fact that he recovered the way he has, I think is a good sign, right? You saw what he did last year leading up to the All-Star break. I think the only problem with Boehm is he's lacked that consistency that you want from somebody like Alec Boehm, with Alec Boehm's talent, right? I think sometimes he gets it into his head that he's struggling, and it makes it harder for him to sort of hit out of that. But I think he's got such a great contact bat that he will always pull himself out of it. So that I guess they sent him a message that it's the major leagues and he should step up after the month of April. And after he showed them in May that he belongs in the middle, I think he's back now until he tells them otherwise. But that's going to be something that he has to show with his performance, right? I mean, this is Major League Baseball, right? Nothing's guaranteed.
All right, Frank, take a look at a couple more here. Some mailbag stuff coming in for Frank Close, 97.3 ESPN.com. I want to go to Abel. A lot of people asking about Abel. You talked about him. Suarez has pitched so well, though. Do they boot him to the bullpen if he continues to pitch this well? Nola, they pushed him back. They're saying that he's not ready. They had said that they're going to move Walker back to the bullpen. They weren't going to use him. So does Abel have a shot? Why not move Walker? Just say, look, you're a bullpen guy this year. That's what you are. And use Abel in those Nola starts.
Yeah, I don't think there's that sense of urgency just yet. I think they want to make sure that Abel's got the comfortable space to pitch every fifth day, not be pushed back and forth. Now, you did mention Aaron Nola. I think they're taking it easy a little bit since the team has been performing just fine without him. I think if they were really in need of Aaron Nola back in the rotation, they would kind of hurry it up. But I think that there's just not a sense of urgency the way things are. And they also know, too, that Andrew Painter is progressing. I mean, another good start the other day. He's basically at 5 innings at AAA. he could be a factor in the matter of weeks. So you don't want to bring Mick Abel up and then displace him for his rotation mate down to AAA either. So I think they just kind of want this to play out a little bit longer. They're in a position where they can do so. They have first place in the National League East. They're winning. They won 9 out of the last 10. So I think they feel like they can take a little bit of time to assess what's going on here. And of course, the bullpen and the construction of that is going to help define what happens with the rest of their pitching staff from the starting side. If the guys in the bullpen now can get it done, then they feel better about it. But I don't have a whole lot of confidence in the Hernandez Ruiz section of the Phillies bullpen. And hey, Max Lazar got a save, but I don't know that Max Lazar is someone you ideally want there. So the number of bullpen arms that aren't helping you is growing. So I think they just want to make sure that they know what they have before they make any decisions. And so because they have the ability to take it easy and take their time, I think they're not going to rush any decisions like that, especially if they think Nola's still a matter of a week or two away, a couple weeks away, 3 weeks away. I think that they would want to keep Mick Abel in place at AAA.
All right, we'll keep an eye on him. He did pitch well in his AAA outing. I guess that was Friday night. I think he threw for AAA Lehigh. Painter. Do we know when Painter and Abel are scheduled to pitch again? It almost seems like the Phillies are just throwing great pitchers out every night of the week. You don't know whether to watch the AAA games, the Major League games. I mean, Painter and Abel right now are almost more fun to watch at the AAA level than some of these guys. And the Phillies' starting rotation at the Major League level is great.
Yeah, it's very, very true. With AAA, by the way, they have Monday off every single week, no matter what. So usually everybody gets moved up a day of the week. I think that if I'm trying to remember at the top of my head, I think Thursday and Friday they both pitched. So I would imagine that Wednesday and Thursday this week would be their turns. This is just me guessing off the top of my head. Someone may correct me. If you have a better answer, please let me know on X or something. But yeah, the two of them are doing very, very well in the Lehigh Valley rotation. It's a great time to go see some minor league baseball, because you know what, Mike, I've been down there at times, and the best prospect was like a 30-year-old Adam Lowen pitching. So I'd say this is a good time to watch some minor league baseball. Aiden Miller still AA Reading, still one of the big names down there. Another one to watch. He hasn't done so well this year, but they've got quality prospects at both levels now that you can go keep an eye on.
Yeah, a big series, by the way. Strider in town for the Braves. Acuna is back. They are 8.5. Is that what they are? 8.5 games out of first place right now. This could be a series where the Phillies push the Braves back into double digits if they can win this series. So this is a big one here. This Braves team started off 0-7. And they've got themselves back to 500 this weekend. They're now 2 games under 500, but they've crawled all the way back to about 500. This is a team, though, that if the Phillies can take care of some business, can really put some distance between you and the Braves. There's the Phillies mailbag. He is Frank Close, at Frank Close on the X platform, and he joins us Tuesdays answering your Phillies questions here on the sports. Let me get one more real quick. This one came in. Any of these players the Phillies would target in trades? He threw a bunch out of this here, but these are all kind of bullpen arms. Chapman, Wilson, Hader, Myers, Ward, Jansen, Detmers. These are all some, the Red Sox are in the race. I don't know that they're going to trade anybody of value while they're still in the race. You got the Astros kind of in the mix there. The Angels are kind of out of it. But any of those names you think intrigue you at all?
Not particularly. If there's one name I could come up with now, it's Kyle Finnegan of the Washington Nationals. Signed a modest $4 million deal to be the Nationals closer this year. Kind of returned to the Nationals after not picking up an option. So I think someone like that might be a good target that you can at least kind of have confidence is going to be available. I mean, I think the Angels, at least now, they're just close enough in it that they might convince themselves they're in it, even though they're really not. But I think I'd Jansen, of course, has had a great career. I don't know what he's got left in the tank, to be honest with you, but I think someone like a Kyle Finnegan is kind of the name that the Phillies might target.
Yeah. All right, Frank. Well, good stuff as always. A lot of questions in the mailbag. We'll do it again next week right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, there's Frank, and of course, you can check it out, the mailbag, over at 973ESPN.com. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video of the show on the Twitter X platform and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. You can follow along, be a part of the show. As always, this hour brought to you by Broadleaf's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating, plumbing, service, installation for generations. Call 609-390-3907, online, broadleafs.net. Nuggets are back in an hour. Nicky Nuggets, after a vacation last week, he's back for today's Knicks Nuggets in 1 hour from now. And in 35 minutes from now, Eagles OTAs today. What is happening at the NovaCare Complex? Adam Kaplan is in for today's football at 4. And you out there at 609-403-0973. More Sports Bash coming up. YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Subscribe, follow, like, text 609-403-0973. I want to be clear, by the way. I am not an advocate of Brandon Marsh. I just said while he's on a good streak, they're not going to pull the plug on him. Inevitably, I think Marsh will have to be replaced. We've been saying this all year. They have to get a better option. But while he's performing right now, it's a small sample size, but it's not like he's up here hitting 0.48. He's been playing in a small sample size and has produced for them. I don't think it will last, but listen, they went to the World Series with Brandon Marsh playing center field for them. He has been a guy that they've been in the playoffs with. Now, you would say they need an upgrade there. I would agree, and I think Justin Crawford's an interesting guy. Now, he's not Justin Crawford. He's not going to hit for power. I mean, he might not hit a home run in his whole career. I mean, by accident, he might hit one. So we don't think he's coming up here as a guy who's giving this offense more power. So I'm wondering if you brought Justin Crawford up, where are they hitting him? Probably at the bottom of the order.
Probably where Marsh is.
I would imagine, yeah, he's probably in the 9 hole.
I think the problem with this conversation, Mike, is that when you talk about what the Phillies should do in center field, it's not as simple as, well, you just got to replace Marsh, or you just got to play Rojas, or you got to call up Crawford, because every one of those scenarios is creating no real upgrade for the lineup. Unless you're going to make a substantial upgrade in center field, no one is coming into this team, Mike, and being like, that's the reason why everything is different.
Well, listen, I think obviously Crawford has been very productive at the AAA level.
Listen,
as we know,
yeah,
you can go to AAA and then come up and struggle. I mean, you're not going to come up here and hit 350 like you are at the AAA level. Look at the guy, by the way, who the A's just called up, Nick Kurtz. All right? Kurtz is like one of their top prospects. He's ripping it up at the AAA level. They call him up here. You know, he's struggling a little bit. I mean, it's a big jump for these guys. He's hitting 400 against lefties at the AAA level. Is he going to come up here and hit 350 against lefties or 330 against lefties? I don't know about that. By the way, over at Mike Gill Show, you can vote. If the Phillies make one trade, what do they need to get? 80% right now say bullpen arm. 16% say it's an upgrade over Marsh or Rojas. 2% say left field upgrade over Kepler. And then you got 2% listing others. But 80% right now are saying bullpen arm. So, and I get it. I'm only giving you to pick one upgrade. But I think the Phillies have to truly look at themselves in the mirror and say, can we upgrade all three of these things? The problem is, I think you need 2 bullpen arms. So do you realistically think you're going to be able to make 4 upgrades from outside of the organization? That's the hard part here. So Crawford has to be on the radar. And I wrote about this before the season started. I gave my predictions, and I said that Justin Crawford will help this team out this season. So I do think that Justin Crawford is a legitimate possibility. It's just when. When do they want to say, you know what, now's the time? And it's not going to be why Brandon Marsh is on a hot streak right now.
No, but it might be, again, we are about 9 weeks from the trade deadline. So it's the idea that 9 weeks from now, Brandon Marsh could cool off, and then this will all be a little bit more of a different conversation, right?
Yeah, I think once Marsh maybe stumbles again and hits another, slow stretch,
or he has another horribly played ball in the outfield.
I don't know that they're judging him defensively. I think they know that defensively he's the weaker option. Well, they obviously know that. The question would be is, if Crawford came up here, he's a left-handed batter.
Yeah.
Would he then platoon with Rojas? Or is the Rojas thing, because now you essentially have Rojas and Crawford, that if you're not platooning those guys, Rojas serves almost no purpose because you're not going to put him in for defensive replacement for Crawford.
No, they're basically
Crawford's
the
a
same
really
player.
good center fielder, so you're not going to. What are you going to use Rojas for? So, and then if you kept Marsh, Well, now you have a third left-handed outfielder with Kepler, Marsh, and Crawford, so that doesn't really work.
Right, and the problem in all of this is that, if you were to bring up Crawford or you were to acquire another guy from another team, Mike, Marsh is you have to move him in some capacity. You can't have him on the team anymore.
Looking back to that trade, man, they got absolutely Rochambeau'd on that thing. Oh, Hoppy's got 14 homers the last I looked.
I know he's on my fantasy baseball team.
He has been exactly what this team doesn't have, a young catcher.
Yeah.
Right?
A young catcher who can hit.
Who can hit. I mean, if you had Logan O'Hoppe on this team right now, where are you hitting him?
Fifth, sixth?
Probably, right? I mean, he's got 14 home runs, which I guess would be second on the team, right, behind Schwarber?
Behind Schwarber.
So if you had Logan O'Hoppe here, you'd have a guy hitting 267 with 14 homers, 30 RBI. You could make a strong argument that he would be hitting right in the middle of this lineup, or at least in the 5 spot, behind Schwarber.
Right.
So you could have Harper,
Schwarber,
O'Hoppe.
and then maybe Castellanos behind him.
Well, they moved Castellanos down in the order already tonight.
True.
So he's in the 6 hole, which I said that before the show today, or during the first hour. I said, it's time for me, it's time to move Castellanos out of that 5 hole.
Right.
You're getting not enough production in big moments from him. He just has come up so small in so many different instances, and the Phillies finally acquiesced. By the way, O'Hoppe hits 5th for the most part for the Angels. He hits 5th and 6th. He's hit 5th in 28 games. He's hit 6th in 10 games. So, yeah, he would probably hit 5th on this team. Now, would he be playing? That's the question. If you didn't make that trade, he's 25 years old. Would the Phillies even have him up here right now?
Well, that's part of the problem, and that is this team very much values JT Realmuto, the defensive catcher, the guy receiving the ball from the pitchers. They highly value him and how he handles the pitching staff.
All right, let me get some more text messages in. You can text 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. We'll put them up on the screen when we can. Phillies don't need Crawford to hit home runs, just someone who can consistently get on base. They have plenty of guys that can smash the ball. Bat Crawford 9, get a double leadoff situation going. Nobody left their name on that one, but a couple things there. So the Phillies have a bunch of guys that can smash the ball, I think is not accurate right now. Where are they in the league?
Two.
Where are they in terms of home runs in the National League right now? I mean, right now, who is a guy who can smash the ball? Schwarber? Okay, I'll play along. Yes, he does. I mean, you only got 5 home runs out of Turner. Harper doesn't even have double-digit. Do they have a second guy with double-digit home runs yet?
Phillies are 11th in baseball in home runs.
In all of baseball.
In all of baseball. You want just the National League?
11th is actually higher than they started. Now, they only have 58 home runs compared to, like, the Yankees and the Dodgers, for instance.
Well, Yankees are number 1 with 86. Dodgers have 84. Cubs are 78. So are the Angels, by the way, Logan O'Hoppe.
So they're at 58. They are 20 off of the Cubs, who were in third, and the Yankees are 86. So the Phillies, like, they don't have I don't think they have more than one guy do they have more than one guy with double-digit homers? They got Schwarber. Who else? Anybody? No. The next highest guy on the team has 8 is Harper. So to that text message, yeah, the Phillies have a bunch of guys who can hit homers, but they haven't been doing it. Not this year.
And I think that is where this conversation drifts because Crawford is not fixing that.
Well, no, he's saying the Phillies don't need Crawford to hit home runs. They need someone who can get on base consistently because they have plenty of guys who can smash the ball, bat him 9, which I think is what you would do. You would hit Crawford in the 9 hole, and then you'd have his speed, Turner's speed. You'd have those guys kind of getting on base. And, yes, high on base, what I talked about earlier. I just hit Turner in the 1 spot. The problem is you don't have a legit number 2 guy. Now, when Turner hits 1, Harper generally hits 2.
Right.
Then you don't have a number 3 guy. You're lacking that. Now, Bohm, has he repositioned himself as a potential 3-4 guy?
I would like to see Bohm hit the 2 spot for a while behind Turner and see what happens.
I'm not anti that. He definitely is the kind of guy who profiles. Let me go to Goody in Galloway. Can we add Mason Miller? Seeing him over the weekend justified whatever the asking price the A's. Goody, were you watching him this weekend? He was terrible. Although, no, I say he was terrible. His results were terrible.
Right.
His stuff, you could see he throws 102 miles an hour. He throws freaking gas, and his stuff was not sharp. He had not pitched a lot. But if you're just going off of what you saw, if you said, hey, watch this guy pitch, you weren't saying I'd given up the farm for that guy.
No, but what you are doing if you're the Phillies is you're calling the A's after that series of being like, so you want to talk about a trade now?
I definitely think conversations were had.
They have to, right? Because if you're the A's, you're saying, hey, it's just one weekend. And if you're the Phillies, you're being like, well, we got one of the best lineups in baseball, and your guy was solid, not elite.
Yeah, you would almost say, hey, he wasn't as good as we hoped. Can we give you less?
Right.
Like, hey, would you take Mick Abel for him?
I would say that should be a deal that's worth having a conversation
Now,
about.
it would probably be Abel, Crawford. You probably have to do multiple guys, minimum.
And maybe not even Crawford specifically, but it's definitely going to take multiple guys to get him. You know, I know the conversation we had last week, Mike, was about Tate, the catcher who's in the lower part of the system. Tait. But he is their fifth best prospect. Mm-hmm. So is that a guy you say, look, this guy is going to come up here anytime soon. We're willing to trade that guy.
He's 18 years old, so, yeah, it's going to be a while. All right, another text message. Guys, they don't need to upgrade in center field. The other guys just need to perform to their contract value. The lineup can't have 9 all-stars. The 9-hole hitter isn't batting 400 with 40 home runs anywhere. You're shaking your head on that.
I hate this argument because this is what bothers me about Dave Dombrowski. That's what Dave Dombrowski's argument is. We already have enough all-stars. I'm not asking for another all-star. What I'm asking for is I have watched this team for 3 straight seasons choke in the postseason because their bats went cold. What I need to know is that when Castellanos goes on the cold streak, when Harper's not having a bad day, when Harper's having a bad day at the office, when these other guys are not doing the job, I need a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th guy who can step up. That's what makes the difference between championship teams and non-championship, when the other guys can step up.
Well, I would say if Justin Crawford gets called up, he is one of the top prospects in baseball. Are you hoping he's an all-star?
You're hoping.
Maybe not right away, but at
maybe
some
he's
point.
2-3 years away, yeah.
609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. A lot of text we'll continue to get throughout the day. Yeah, Miller, too. Go back to Goody in Galloway's text message. If you look at Mason Miller's numbers this year, I mean, they are not great. But you can see that he's got electric stuff.
He has absolutely electric stuff. And you could even make the argument that maybe he would be better with a team like the Phillies.
I just don't think he gets enough work out there. Now, the one number that jumps off the page is the strikeouts. He's got 36 strikeouts in 18 2/3 inning. Now, the other number that I look at, and it's not terrible, it's the whip, 1.39. So he's almost 1.4 on the whip. That's a number that I'd like to see lower. His ERA is 5.79, so he has been hit around this year. In 18 innings, he's given up 16 hits to compare. Last year in 65 innings, only gave up 36 hits. Last year he had 104 strikeouts in 65 innings. Now he's got 36 strikeouts in 18 innings, so the strikeouts are there, but he's getting hit around a little bit more this year.
Right.
And the whip is last year 0.87. This year, it's almost 1.4. Now, what does that mean? Okay, he's 26 years old. So even though he's a rookie last year, he's at 26 years old, so he's not like some 22 or 23-year-old kid. So you might be able to pry him away from the A's, who have been signing a lot of guys, buying out their arbitration years, like Rooker and Butler. They've been buying their arbitration years out. Now, keep in mind, the A's are moving to Vegas. When they move to Vegas, they want to have some guys that they can say, hey, this guy's here and this guy's here. They got the kid Wilson. That dude's a stud. Rooker, they signed him. Butler, they signed him. What is better for the A's? Having a closer or saying we just got a starting pitcher and a center fielder?
It's obviously the pitcher and the center fielder because that's more marketable.
Right.
And especially considering the fact that you just said they've been buying out these guys' arbitration years. Well, they haven't bought out Miller's arbitration years.
No,
He's
they
got
haven't.
3 more left.
That's interesting. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Hit me up on the X platform, at Mike Gill Show. On the YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Subscribe, be a part of the show. And on the text board, 609-403-0973. That's where you can hit me up. More Sports Bash on the way. Coming up in 13 minutes from now. OTAs have got underway at the NovaCare Complex. Adam Kaplan takes a look at football at 4. All right, 352 Sports Bash. I'm Mike Gill at Mike Gill Show on the X platform, YouTube at Mike Gill Show. You can subscribe and like and watch and be a part of the show. A lot of text today. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Mike, ESPN has early leaders in various categories. One is the NL Rookie of the Year. It's amazing that the World Series winning Dodgers have 2 in the top 10. Braves and Brewers also have 2. Mets 1. Phillies minor league is not producing at the major league level like their main NL opponents. Agree, Phil and Brigantine. That's an interesting point. I've always been tough on the Phillies for not promoting their young talent in a timely fashion. It feels like the Phillies just wait and wait and wait. My question would be, yes, they have Crawford. They really don't have another guy. Now, Painter, I think if he didn't get hurt, he would have been up here by now. I think he would have pitched in the rotation last year, but he got hurt. Mick Abel was so bad last year that they couldn't bring him up. Really, other than those guys, Phil, I don't really think they have another guy that. But you're right. Phillies minor league talent is not producing at the major league level unless you're including like Stott and Bohm. Like they were in the Phillies minor league system.
Right.
And they're up here. But Rojas, other than that, who else? Suarez, Sanchez. No, they traded for Sanchez. Suarez was their guy.
Right. I would just say really quick that, part
Nola.
of this goes back to the Clintac era. And part of the reason why he was fired was because they made a lot of prospect decisions and draft decisions that did not pan out.
Well, you're right. They're not getting a lot from their minor league system, but they really don't have a lot of guys that are ready, except for Crawford, Painter, Abel, and Miller's probably right on the cusp. He's at Double-A right now and not really ripping up Double-A. So we'll see how it plays out. I think Crawford will be in play. I think Abel will be in play. And I think Painter will be in play this season. We'll discuss more coming up. But next, football at 4, OTAs. Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. It's Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast today, talking a little Eagles as the OTAs begin at the NovaCare Complex. You're going to hear from Kevin Batula, I think, is going to talk for the first time as the Eagles offensive coordinator on tomorrow. I think you'll hear from him for the first time tomorrow. Their organized team activities begin today as the Philadelphia Eagles begin for the first time in 2025 as the defending champions. Batula, by the way, is scheduled to speak with reporters before tomorrow's practice at about 12:05, so we'll listen in on that. They begin their on-field workouts today, and then the reporters will be on the field tomorrow, get a chance to kind of look at everything that is happening out there with the battles, right? As I was talking to John McMullen this weekend, and I said, give me something that you're intrigued by in the OTAs. Like, what do these teams do at OTAs? And he said, well, it'll be the first time that they kind of set the depth chart a little bit here. Now, I would say this. Remember last year, Quinyon Mitchell was not the starter until almost week 1 of the season. It was like he was not, so the Eagles generally will not put the rookies at the top of the depth chart right off the bat. But when they start their journey today, with the players out on the field today and then the reporters out there tomorrow, there will be about, right guard, corner, safety, defensive end, edge, rusher, whatever you want to call that spot. I guess linebacker. What's that position going to look like without Nakobe Dean there? The quarterback presence, you got the backup spot. I think Tanner McKee has that, but Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Kyle McCord. Running back, obviously, is Saquon Barkley, but what happens behind him? You got A.J. Dillon here. He missed a lot of time, right? He was hurt. So is A.J. Dillon able to come back and be a bigger presence as a second running back than you had last year with Kenny Gainwell? Wide receiver, what's the number 3 wide receiver spot look like? The tight end spot, that looked like it was going to be a big time, and then all of a sudden Goddard back in the fold. But what's behind him? You got Kalen Granson, and Harrison Bryant there. The offensive line, as we mentioned, pretty much intact except for the right guard spot. And then you got all those rookies, Drew Kendall, Miles Hinton, and Cameron Williams. We'll get our first chances to look at them on the defensive side of the ball. I'm interested in Azeez Ojulari. Can he be the guy that stands out as those pass rushers that they brought in to replace Josh Sweat? They got Josh Uche here. Obviously, Jalix Hunt will be a guy that we're going to keep an eye on, as well as Bryce Huff, who last year impressed didn't impress, I should say, in a short, he did not play a lot because of the injuries last year. And then Jordan Davis, defensive line, defensive tackle. You got Jordan Davis with Thomas Booker, Moro Ojomo, that group of guys. How will they now complement next to Jalen Carter, where last year Milton Williams excelled? So that's a big spot. Nakobe Dean, as we mentioned, out at linebacker. You probably will not see Jahad Campbell. He is rehabbing. So will this be Jeremiah Trotter's opportunity to show this team that he can produce as a starting linebacker? And then, the corner spot, Kaylee Ringo, Adoree Jackson, those names. Safety spot, who will play next to Reed Blankenship? We'll get our first chance to look at all of that. And, of course, that all starts with the OTAs that get underway today up at the NovaCare Complex. And, of course, your home for Eagles football, 97.3 ESPN. By the way, the reporters, as we said, will be on the field tomorrow. They will get a chance to check out the Eagles for the first time tomorrow. And one other quick Eagles note. Howie Roseman will throw out the first pitch tonight for the Philadelphia Phillies game. So what kind of reception do we think that you will get for Howie Roseman tonight when he throws the first pitch out at the Phillies-Braves game? Remember, Spencer Strider's pitching the game tonight. He has had some interesting, should we say, run-ins with the Philadelphia fans during these home Philadelphia Philly-Braves matchups where he has not looked all that interested in pitching against the Phillies in some of these playoff games. But you do get, I got to imagine, when Howie Roseman gets announced that this place will erupt tonight, right? Has Roseman he doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of public appearances, Roseman, does he? Right? We don't see Roseman all that often. So will Roseman get this, bombastic cheer that could rock Spencer Strider? Strider pitching tonight. He's this is his third start, I think. He's coming back from Tommy John surgery, and he has not pitched well. But he will now have to go to the Philadelphia fans and the fact that Howie Roseman is throwing out the first pitch tonight. I'm just trying to find his not for 2025. What are his overall career splits pitching at Citizens Bank Park? I know he's pitched well, Strider, in games against the Phillies. And I don't know if these are – I think when they do the splits for ballpark, I don't think they do I think this is regular season numbers, because in his regular season numbers against the Phillies, Spencer Strider's been pretty good. He so far at Citizens against the Philadelphia Phillies, overall, he is 8-0 with a 2.06 ERA. Strider has owned the Phillies with a .7 WHIP. Now, when you go to Citizens Bank Park, he is equally as dominant. He has got a 1.88 ERA, 3-0 in 24 innings pitched. That's 4 starts against the Phillies. His WHIP is 0.9. So the Phillies decide tonight, hey, we'll tap into our Eagles friends over there, and we'll bring Howie Roseman into the ballpark and see if we can get him to, put the bugaboo into Spencer Strider, who, by the way, has struggled in his first couple starts since he's come back. He is 0-2 with a 5.79 ERA in 2 games, but don't take anything off of that. He's just coming back from Tommy John. So there's the Eagles news for tonight. Howie Roseman will throw out the first pitch at Citizens Bank Park. All right, Adam Kaplan will be here now to talk a little bit more about who benefits from these OTAs. They get underway today, tomorrow, a couple days next week or later on in the week as the Eagles are back on the field for the first time post-Super Bowl. This is really our first chance, Adam, to check these guys out. Let's get a little intel and a little bit of a preview of what we might see. We did have the offseason OTAs in April, but this is now a little bit more. There's a couple phases here. So let's get a little intel and a preview of what the fans can expect these next couple days.
Yeah, Mike. So these are the real OTAs. So what phase one? There's nothing on the field. That's all strength and conditioning. As one coach told me, it's been in the league a long time. It's the trainers get them weight room and so forth. Phase two, Mike, is when you could start doing some stuff on the field with coaches, but at a walkthrough pace, not real strenuous. As this coach told me, it's can they learn and what have they learned? You're basically kind of testing them from a mental standpoint because the tape tells you the college tape tells you athletic they are. In phase three, which they're going to be in now, this is when there's a little bit of competition, not a lot. The real competition obviously starts at training camp, but you can do you can do 11 on 11. There's no contact. 11 on 11, 7 on 7, some 9 on 7, and you can turn up the speed a little bit. And that's phase three is right now. So it's more important now in terms of seeing kind of what they can do. But it's so important, Mike, as we talk about OTAs now, you want to start getting an idea of where the player is at, and if they're learning well, can they translate that onto the field? Because there is classroom work, which where they go over the tape and they go over what they need to know, and then can they apply it to the field? And that's pretty big because eventually, Mike, these guys have to prove themselves. We're talking about rookies and what it's important for. Undrafted rookies.
Yeah.
Drafted rookies, right, this year. And the big one is, Jeff and I talk about this. This is a big deal on our show today. The second-year players showing the growth from one year to the next.
Right, so there's some of the guys that benefit. You mentioned rookies, undrafted, rookie free agents, second-year players. and guys who are on 1-year deals, they come in here, they're trying to get some big money here. The Eagles have a lot of guys, though, that kind of fit into these categories, right? Rookies, second-year players, guys on 1-year deals, prove-it type of guys. They signed a bunch of those guys. So who are some guys that maybe this is going to be an interesting week for? And you say, look, hey, I always look at these OTAs as, hey, I don't know much about this guy, but I watched him here, and now I want to watch him closer when we get to August or July.
Right. So I'll give you one. I'm going to give you an example of how OTAs can give you a little bit of an idea that this guy's probably going to have a real chance if he builds off what he did in OTAs. I'm going to go back to the 2017 season OTAs, right? So Carson Wentz, this is Wentz's breakout year. They changed his mechanics. Okay, he really looked good. But the big story was this kid, undrafted free agent from South Jersey, out of University of Wisconsin, a very accomplished running back in college. That's Corey Clement. I remember talking to their coaches then, and that was the only name they gave me, that because they loathe to say who stood out. It's rare that a player will stand out other than being sharp mentally, because you can't really do anything physically. So that they don't want to give you, oh yeah, this guy blew us away. They don't really do that.
Yeah.
But they want to know where a guy is, okay, we gave this guy a lot of stuff, and he really handled it. Corey Clement, that was the one name I got out of the 17 OTAs. I was like, okay. You can't, reporters don't know what you're looking at, because running backs are the one position where you literally can't tell because they can't be touched. But from a mental standpoint and pass protection being angled and lined up correctly, he was ahead of schedule. So I was like, okay, let's just see. I mean, they had a crowded backfield. They had eventually signed LeGarrette Blount. So that he had Mike, he was a major long shot, but Howie Roseman told his agent, I remember talking to his agent then, Howie said, if he earns it, if he does great, he's going to be on the roster. Don't worry about what the media thinks or anyone else thinks. And he made the roster, Mike, and guess what? 0 chance they win the Super Bowl without Corey Clement.
Oh, he was a huge player in particularly that game. I mean, that catch he makes is obviously that sets up the Philly special play. But it's not only the play he makes, it's the things that he did to make that play work. The stiff arm, catch and run after the catch. It was a huge play for them. Second-year player that I'm interested to get your take on, because I think he's interesting, is Jeremiah Trotter Jr. You mentioned these second-year players. How big of a, I guess it's OTAs, we're not making it huge, but how big of a opportunity does he have? I mean, do they look at him as a possible guy who can fill in for Nakobe Dean if he's not ready?
Well, Dean's the question is, when will Dean play football this season? So he's just not really factoring in. It's Trotter, and when will Jahad Campbell be ready? So Jahad Campbell is going to get mental reps until he gets cleared for contact. So right now, we'll see what happens tomorrow when the reporters are there. They're able to see who's running with the first team. Trotter will get some work with the ones. Does he get majority of them? I couldn't tell you. But he was so well ahead, we were told last season, mentally. He's a smaller guy, Mike. He's not built like his dad, which is, he's just not. He's exact opposite. He's really small, very small frame. But he could shed and sort. He knows where to go and how to get there. And Mike, he did a really good job. He would have made, I know people saying, he only made the team because of his dad. I get the sentiment, Mike. He earned it. He had a good training camp, and he did a good job. What we were told, Mike, he really practiced well during the regular season. So, we're going to see a lot of him. But the guys that I'm very interested in is, We'll keep on the defensive side of the ball because you brought it up. Jalix Hunt, Mike.
Yep.
Jalix Hunt right now could start. Right now, he's definitely going to work with the ones. Now, are they going to rotate him with Aziz Ojulari? Josh Uche? Uche is on a 1-year deal, so is Ojulari. So those guys have a lot to prove. They have a number of players on defense on 1-year deals. They signed, Mike, over 10 players on 1-year deals this year. A guy that I'm excited to see is Lewis Seen. We reported at the time that the Bills were working him out at linebacker in practice, which is kind of odd. But I know they had injuries, I was told, during the regular season. So we know he's going to be a safety for the Eagles, but how do they use him? Is he going to run on a third team, second team? Mike, so I think that's interesting for me. Also, and this is huge, and it was huge last year, Mike, at OTAs. Last year at this time, it was Isaiah Rodgers. The Eagles had not seen him because he was He had to get off the suspended list. And Keely Ringo. Now, Ringo, this is how you got to be careful. As I talked about on today's show, how off season is Double-A baseball, Mike. It means very little in terms of what's going to happen. Training camp and preseason, it's Triple-A. In the majors is the regular season. Okay, that's so. Keely Ringo had a really good off season, Mike. Training camp, it was over after 1 week. Isaiah Rogers moved ahead of it and he never looked back. So be very careful what reporters put out there. Jeff and I have been covering this league combined over 45 years. Jeff's around the 20-year mark. I'm about 27 and 28. I've learned my lesson from being very careful of what I see. It means very little, but I like to find out who's ahead mentally and who's behind. That bleep matters, Mike. Trust me.
Yeah, well,
coaches are big on that stuff.
You mentioned Ringo. I know he's not a second-year guy, but third year. But he's only played 7 starts. So he doesn't have a lot of playing time, and he's in a battle with a guy who does fit your benefits, a 1-year deal guy, a Dory Jackson. So Jackson's out there fighting tooth and nail to prove that he belongs up against a guy who doesn't have a lot. So that one should be very intriguing to watch, even in the early portions here.
Yeah, yes. Obviously, you got to see where Dory Jackson is physically. Does he still have it? The Eagles think so. They thought his tape was good enough. That's why they signed him. And Moro Jomo, he's going to start. So that's more of a training camp thing. See how he holds up physically. I want to see Ty Robinson. I know the Eagles are super excited about. That was I don't know if he gets the gold star, but I know their scouting staff very high on him. I'm interested to see him. And then offensively, Mike, where's A.J. Dillon at?
Yeah,
didn't play last year. Okay, he got hurt. He got hurt in the preseason. So let's see where he's at because they barring something now. If he doesn't have it like Rashad Penny, now that's where we got to be careful. If he's Rashad Penny, then that's a different story. Whereas Rashad Penny's legs left him, then he had to retire. If A.J. Dillon's all the way back, he's the 2, and there's no debate. But he's got to show that he's got it. We got to see where his timing is, Mike.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page with that because I'll follow up with this question. Do they want to get more from their second running back this year? In other words, use Barkley less.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, Mike. Let's say it's the fourth quarter, and this is going to happen. They're going to have a nice lead, 17 points with 12 minutes left. Get Barkley out, get Dillon in. Let him salt the game away. That's what he's here for. You don't need to overwork Barkley. The history of running backs, Mike, 1,800 yards or more, the next year almost always either get hurt or there's a big yardage drop. You don't need to overwork them. Like everyone else, I was shocked that he held up. Done it. I mean, it's amazing. I give their training staff obviously a lot of credit and the player a lot of credit. Now, and by the way, Kevin Patullo, here's another one.
He'll talk tomorrow, by the way. He'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah, he's going to talk, right. So now we'll learn more about him in training camp. Now, we got fooled 2 years ago when Swift was here for the 1 year. Remember, the Eagles' backs caught a ton of balls. Once we got to the regular season, they didn't catch anything. Now, there are reasons for it. Hurts doesn't like to check down, whatever the case may be. And we're going to learn more about him in training camp. But I'm interested to see how the backs are used. Let's see what Will Shipley looks like physically. He needs to put on weight and mass on his frame. I want to see that. The right guard position, Mike, is up for grabs. We'll get a look at that. And the other thing the coaches tell me, Mike, what kind of shape the guys are they in good shape? Because I'll give you a nugget. 3 years ago, I think it's when Jordan Mailata, we reported this at the time. He reported over 400 pounds. He was told to lose 25 or so by the time he got to training camp. He was a rock when he showed up to training camp, Mike. So we're going to be looking at that. What kind of shape? And that's what we saw. I'll give you another one. When Miles Sanders' lower body, it was his best year as an Eagle, man. He was jacked. That's the kind of stuff I think that doesn't matter. What kind of shape do these guys come in?
Right. Well, I know a lot of them were down the shore this weekend. Hopefully they drained out. They were bouncing here and there and everywhere. Nick Sirianni was down here as well.
I saw that. I saw that. Yeah.
I know. It appears that his wife is probably. It seems like she's over the Eagle chants everywhere he goes. Poor guy.
I know, but you know what? I love that about Nick. And you brought this up, Mike, and this I'm glad. When you brought it up, why don't the fans embrace him? I know he's a little bit out there with his attitude. You see him yelling. So what?
Yeah.
They refused. You nailed it, Mike, when you said this. I don't. What else do you want this guy to do?
It is bewildering to me. I know I compared him to like Rocky Balboa. I said this guy's the most improbable Philly sports figure that you can think of. Like, you couldn't handpick a guy to say this is the most improbable guy. Like, you're going to be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. You're going to win 70% of your games. You're going to go to 2 Super Bowls and win one of them. People would say there's no way the day this guy was hired. And here we are 4 years later when the guy gets an extension, talking about a guy who's won a Super Bowl, been to 2, been to the playoffs all 4 years, and yet he's not. I had somebody over the weekend say he's a doofus, he's this, he's that. I said, what more does this guy need to do? It's unbelievable. It's
not a doofus. Well, let me ask you this, Mike. That person who said it, what was the reasoning?
He compared him to Barry Switzer, essentially saying that the roster was so good that anybody could have won with this team.
All right, I'm going to give you a nugget since you brought this up. So 2021 season, Nick, the coach is no longer on the team. Told me I ran into this guy. It's a combine or a golf event. I can't remember, but this is when I ran into him in 22, he goes, I got to tell you, that was one of the best coaching jobs I've ever been around. The job that Nick did his first year. I'm like, why do you say that? He goes, our roster wasn't as great as it would be in 22, but his ability, first of all, he gave up play calling. Okay. He never, when they got off to that really bad start and then turn it around, the guy said he never wavered. He said the guy would coach his ass off, and he coaches hard, and they bought in, and the players adored Nick. So I don't know. It's like I get it with Howie Roseman because he didn't draft well for a while. Now he's great. So the fans now love Howie. They don't want to fire Howie. They love him.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just funny how this town, Mike. I grew up here in this market, born and raised. I know you're from this area. Look, sometimes it's deserved. It's a little overboard wanting someone to get fired, but I get the criticism of Howie. Now, obviously he could run for mayor if he wanted to.
Throwing out the first pitch tonight. Throwing out the first pitch.
He got honored last week locally. But with Nick, to move this along here, I think, folks, you got to be real here. He brought you a Super Bowl along with Howie. They have a really good partnership. You got a great owner. In our lifetime, Mike, I other than the Flyers when I was a little kid when they won back-to-back Stanley Cups, and obviously they haven't been back in 50 years, the Eagles have set this thing up so well with this young team. I'm not used to covering this team when they're really young, Mike. They're one of the 3 youngest teams in the National Football League.
Yeah. Well, guess what? Yeah, you got a lot of young guys on a Super Bowl champion team. It all starts today. Right. Tomorrow, the coordinator will talk. We'll hear from Kevin Petula for the first time. Very intrigued to see what his philosophies will be with this offense. Adam Kaplan, Football at 4, everybody, here from the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can listen to on all podcasting platforms. Just search Inside the Birds. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
All right, Adam Kaplan, good comments today. Good Football at 4. Little football today, everybody, and football tomorrow. We'll have plenty more on the Eagles back on the field. Jeff Mosher will be tomorrow here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. All right, coming up, Nuggets are back. Nick Earnshaw returns for this week's Knicks Nuggets. They're next right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. You can watch the show live on the Twitter X platform, YouTube. Just search Mike Gill Show, and you'll find it right there. And, of course, be a part of the show. Easy to do. Text board is open, 609-403-0973. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash. At 4:31, so we were talking in the 3 o'clock hour with Frank. Andrew Painter, they just announced that he will make his third start tomorrow night. So Painter back on the mound tomorrow night for the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs. That will be his next start. It's time for Nick's Nuggets. Nuggets is back after a vacation. He is back with the Nuggets today. They are brought to you by The Hub. Gear that works as hard as you do. Nick Earnshaw is host of the Shift podcast and producer of the Locker Room Weekends on 97.3 ESPN. And he joins me now for another edition of Nick's Nuggets here on the Sports Bash. All right, Nick, welcome back, man. We missed you.
Oh, it's a great day to be back on the Sports Bash. I've been so excited. I've had all these nuggets. I stuffed them in my pocket during vacation, just waiting and cry. I just couldn't wait to get to the Sports Bash on Tuesday after Memorial Day weekend. Hope everyone had a great weekend. I got a lot to discuss. And, you know, I had to get my tan on before Billy this year because you know how tan Billy gets. I had to get a jump start on him this year, you know, so I could maybe compete with him a little bit.
A little tan. So you got a little Florida tan going there?
A little Florida tan,
a little
glow.
Glow
Shirt too. A little glow. Just a little.
What is that shirt there? It looks you got what is going on there?
Yeah, it's a lot going on. It's a Florida man t-shirt. That's what I'm like to call it. Polo, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, listen, I got it on sale. Can't beat it. All right, nugget number 1. Let's go. And we got to start with your poll question from today. I found it absolutely fascinating. If the Phillies make one trade, what do they need to get? And, you know, everyone's going to say bullpen, okay? Everyone's going to say bullpen. One trade, though, I'm still sticking with my right-handed bat, Mike Gill. I think this is going to be a thin market. I think there's going to be plenty of moves to make anyway. Yeah, you know, I know if it's one trade, I know that's a question. They're going to go get a bullpen arm. That's going to happen. I think that it's no doubt about it. They'll add an arm at some point, but they need a right-handed bat. I'm going to put my foot down and give you 3 names that they should target. My top 3 right-handed bats that they should go after. And this is no particular order. Rhys Hoskins, Andrew McCutchen, and my last one, who I think is my favorite, who no one's really talking about, George Springer of the Toronto Blue Jays. I think those are the 3 names to keep in mind when the Phillies are getting close to the trade deadline. They need a right-handed bat. I think Springer would be the most impactful. It's wonky up there in Toronto. I think you can get Springer for a decent price, especially since he's been struggling a little bit lately. He got off that scorching start. Springer would be my guy that nobody's talking about that the Phillies should absolutely target, with Toronto kind of on the fence at this point, Mike. But I'm going right-handed bat.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think if you're looking for an offensive upgrade, the right-handed bat goes way up the list. Now, Bob Wankel put something out on the X platform today. I want to see if that changes your mind about this at all. And he put this out on the X platform saying Philadelphia Phillies against left-handed pitching is interesting. They're 4th in OBP, 4th in slugging, 4th in OPS, 4th in homers versus left-handed pitching. Does that change your take on that at all?
No, I think they need to just continue to add. I think you got to listen, the NL is going to be tough this year in the postseason, and we've seen the bats go cold. You need as much hitting as you possibly can. You know, if they all go cold at the same time again, I don't know what you do after that. I mean, that's literally what has happened every single year. Another impact bat will not hurt this team. They have an abundance of starting pitching. They can trade a lot of those guys, Mick Abel, the Ranger Suarez of the world. They have plenty of starting pitching. They're fine there. But a right-handed bat, I think if you could add another piece to this puzzle in the lineup, it's not going to hurt them whatsoever. I think that would be huge.
All right, I got a couple Springer questions now.
Okay.
Springer, by the way, 35 years old, a little older guy,
So
signed
McCutchen.
for – but McCutchen to me is more of a platoon guy.
Yeah.
But my point with Springer – and by the way, McCutchen plays left field. Springer plays right field. He has played 1 game in left field in his entire career. So,
Yes.
where does he go?
I would put him in right. And I'd move Castellanos to left or vice versa. I think you could go either way. I know
you're not moving Castellanos.
I know you don't want to move Cassie, but I put Springer in left. I mean, he's 35 years old. I don't think that's going to be a massive change for him. And I think he would be an impact bat on this team. You wouldn't have to give up a ton for him.
Just saying, he's never played left field before. I cannot imagine them asking Castellanos, who's now worked himself into an adequate right fielder, to go play left field. So I would imagine you're saying to Springer, you're going to have to go over and play left field. Now you got a guy who's, only played one game in his life in left field. He is 35 years old. He's having a good year, not a great year. So yes, maybe you could try to get him on the cheap. Yeah, if you can. Now, 361 on base percentage, very good. Yep. Not showing the power, though. This is where, the Phillies need this right-handed bat power. He's only got 5 homers this year. Not a lot of power so far. Same amount of home runs as Trey Turner so far.
He is OPS, though, is 789 right now. So he's
getting
on base.
361 on base. His OPS has been good. His power has just not come around yet. And last year, he only had 19 homers, so it looks like the power dissipating a little bit. I mean, he's far cry from the guy who hit 39 homers back in 2019, so you're not getting that guy anymore. I don't know that he has, that power like this last couple of years. Right now, 5 homers. Last year he had 19 homers, 21 the year before that. The power seems like it's dropping. Older guy.
That's what you go. That's why I think they should go after him, because he'd be relatively cheap. He's had a solid year. He started off strong. He's been bad as of late. Hasn't been too great. So I think maybe his price will come down a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think he is still going to have a nice season. It's a long baseball season, like all of the Phillies.
I know.
They started off slow. I think Springer would be a guy you could plug into this lineup. And at the bottom of your lineup, to have George Springer in there would not be that bad.
Last year, he hit 220 with a 303 on-base percentage, 19 homers, 56 RBI. That's a problem.
That was last year. That's not this year.
I'm saying. So
this year.
You're starting to see a guy who is starting to decline a little bit. That's all.
Yeah, that's why I want him for this year. You make the run. You go after him. Now, the Hoskins thing.
You say you want him for this year, but you want him for this year, but he's signed through next year.
Yes, so you're going to have him for about a year and a half. You could move on from him in the offseason. Who knows? You could move on from him again. Have him for a little bit. Now, the Rhys Hoskins thing is fascinating.
$24 million next year, by the way.
So, and they'll have the money because they have money coming off the books, too.
Well, you got to ask yourself, do I want to play a declining player who's going to be 36 years old, $24 million? This is sounding less and less, and I'm talking myself out of this one.
You don't want Springer. I think Springer would be a nice piece. He's won a championship before. He's been there, done that. He's hitting at pretty decent rate. He's a right-handed bat. He solves the left field problem for you because you can move him over there. I know he hasn't played a ton there, but he's a corner out.
Oh, he hasn't played a ton. He's played one game there in his career.
I know,
one.
I'm saying. But you're going to have to make an adjustment there. There's not a lot of right-handed bats out there that you can just plug into left field. There just isn't. That would be tradable.
What about today? The Phillies listened to me. I said, I'm done with Castellanos in the 5-hole. I don't need to see any more of him there. And they listened to me, and they put Bohm in the 5-hole, and they shipped Castellanos down to the 6th spot.
Yeah, I did see that. It's a nice little change for them, but they want to add. There's not going to be a ton of options. Springer, Hoskins, McCutchen. I think those are kind of the names you're going to see out there. There's not going to be that big-time name that I think teams are going to give up, especially since you have that third wild card. Teams aren't going to want to give up some of those players.
McCutchen's interesting. I mean, he does play left field. That is something you wouldn't have to say, hey, do you want to go play left? Can you try to play left? He has played left. Now, I do think moving from right to left, it's not something that's ridiculous. He can obviously, Springer, I would imagine, can do it, but it would be a little bit of an adjustment. But I will say, for McCutchen, could he be a platoon player with Kepler? Is that a good enough platoon if you had McCutchen and Kepler? I think McCutchen's kind of a winning type of guy. I know he's been on a lot of bad Pirate teams, but keep in mind, he's about the one human being in the world that was able to get that team to a playoff for a little bit of a stretch there. He's having a solid year, 261, 371 on base percentage. I mean, he still has a little bit of, pop in his bat. I mean, he doesn't have to play every day, but could he be the guy who's the platoon player with Kepler? Would that be sufficient enough? I might go over, and by the way, You talk about paying a guy $24 million. You're not paying Andrew McCutchen that much money.
No.
He comes over here. He's only getting paid $5 million this year, and then he's a free agent.
That's why he's on the wish list, Mike. Hoskins, Cutchin, Springer. Hoskins, I think that one's fascinating. I love to see Rhys Hoskins back here. I know he doesn't play a great first base. I get it. But you can move Harper back into the outfield. He's willing to go back to the outfield. Hoskins has been here. He's a leader in the clubhouse. He knows everybody here. I would not mind the Hoskins. Hoskins talk does not bother me as it bothers some other people. And he's having a pretty good year, especially a good month of May, too.
No, in fact, I talked about it earlier, because we saw the article that was written, and it's like, hey, could you make this happen? He has a mutual option for 2026. So he does get paid a decent amount of money, but it's a mutual option. So if both sides agree or whatever, that would have to be figured out. But on base percentage, he's 387. I hated him in the number 2 hole when he was here before, but on this team, he might fit in that number 2 hole if you went Turner, Hoskins, Harper, Schwarber. You get a little power. You get on base percentage with Hoskins. I might be intrigued by that. The question would be, what would you do? Would you play him at first base and move Harper back to the outfield? Would you just DH him and keep Schwarber in the outfield? Would you just rotate those 3 guys around? Something to consider.
Yep, those are the 3 names that are at the top of my list right now.
Yeah, I would say, though, and
Cutchin.
I said this on Sunday, I never need to see Rhys Hoskins play first base again in my life. I would play Schwarber in left field. I would play
back in left.
I would play Schwarber in left field before I would put Hoskins back at first base. I would keep Harper at first and play Schwarber in left. I know Schwarber's not great, but if it's between him at first and Schwarber in left, I would play Harper at first and Schwarber in left, and I would DH Hoskins.
And listen, I've been harping on this for a while. I don't hate Harper at first. That's not my point. Harper at first, he's been a great first baseman. He's been fantastic. He's turned himself into a really good first baseman, especially defensively. It's just the dynamics of the roster and the way the lineup's constructed. It kind of threw everything off after Rhys left, right? Moving Harper to first, you opened up those holes in the outfield. That was my problem with the whole thing. That was just my issue, is the roster construction with Harper moving to first, letting Hoskins go. You lost the right-handed bat. You opened up a hole in the outfield. That was my whole issue with it. And they bring him back. The problem is solved that I've talked about for almost a year at this point. So we'll see. Listen, they're the best team in baseball, but they do need to add. We know the holes that this team does have, but they're still a real good baseball team. All right, let's move along. Nugget number 2. I saw this over the weekend. Podcast P, he's back. Show's back, Mike. I know you're a big fan of the podcast. Paul George, he sat down with a couple of different guests. He had Gilly on just recently. We know Gilly from the Eagles Super Bowl run. He was going crazy. Has his own podcast, whole thing. It was fascinating. Gilly said straight to his face that the fan base is just tired of everything going on with the Sixers. That was the basic gist of that episode. And I don't think Paul George understood that. He also was on with Carmelo Anthony on the podcast. And then they were talking about how a fan, when Paul George was caught on camera going through, Broadshire, somewhere at Philadelphia, wherever he was driving through when the Eagles won the NFC Championship game, he overheard a fan say to him, they could have kept Tobias Harris if this is what they were getting from Paul George. So, with all of this stuff getting put in Paul George's face, do we think it clicks at some point for this California guy who really the Sixers were not his first choice, didn't play a lot last year, aging veteran? Do you think it might have gotten through to him after all of this, Mike Gill?
Only time will tell when they get back out there. We shall see. And I'm not even 100% sure that he'll even be here. The draft is about a month from today. Yeah. It's June 25th, so less than a month. I would not be shocked if Paul George wasn't here listening to all this stuff that's going on out there. He's saying the right things. Like, I want the challenge. I love how passionate these guys are. I've never been to a place where it's like this. He made the remark about Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris apparently didn't like it all that much. Yeah.
He responded to it on Twitter, and he put the record, I think, after that. Driving through the conference championship or whatever.
Listen, Tobias Harris, got to the playoffs this year. The Sixers did not, so he can have the last word on this. But if the Sixers really want the last word, they are going to have to do what they thought they were going to get, or get what they thought they were going to get from Paul George in his second season. You can't have him sitting on the sideline. And, of course, you need Joel Embiid back. And, by the way, we should have some update on Joel Embiid here soon. I mean, we're looking at about 6 weeks since he got the surgery, right?
Yeah, it's been a few weeks now since he got that surgery. By the way, Shams was on McAfee today, and he was reporting that the Sixers are going to receive a ton of phone calls for that third pick. A lot of the rumors going out there. Shams was also talking about how this might be a wild NBA offseason. So we need the Knicks to lose to the Pacers, okay? We need that to get finished up. I'm getting tired of seeing these Knicks fans out there celebrating when it's not even a championship. They're celebrating second-round wins, okay? I'm getting tired of that. So, once this thing ends and the season's over, I can't wait. I'm fascinated. I just don't know. I think they're going to keep it, but they're going to get a lot of interest. And we know how much Daryl Morey loves to star hunt Mike Gill.
He does, and that's one of the things that he has been – well, it's been one of the things he's been praised for and criticized for, is that he is so fixated on stars that, he's pulled the trigger on some big stars. Harden twice. He traded for Harden when he was with Oklahoma City to get him to Houston. Then he traded for him again when he was in Brooklyn to get him to Philadelphia. So he takes these big swings. Obviously he signed Paul George. He brought back Joel Embiid. He obviously thinks that the stars are the way to go. But I think one thing that Morey is not getting enough credit for is the pieces that he has put around his stars. The problem is the stars haven't produced, but he has found, if you want to say Maxey isn't a star, he's a high-end player that they found at pick 21. Jared McCain, if you want to say he hasn't played enough games, that's fine, but at pick 16, he looked like a guy who can really make an impact. I think Edwards is a guy they got as an undrafted rookie free agent. He looks like a rotational piece. Grimes looks like a rotational piece. Bona looks like a rotational piece. I think he's done a good job of finding the peripheral players. Now he needs his stars to step up.
Yeah, you need the stars to play. They just have to play the games at this point. So, Podcast B, doing all the shows, collabing, whatever he wants to do. Hopefully it gets through his head and he plays some basketball this year. We'll see what happens. All right, moving along. Nugget number 3. Mike, I would be remiss. I didn't get a chance to talk about it last week, and I'm so excited. 2 votes short. Tush Push is back. I had to bring that up before I got off Nuggets today. The Tush Push, your favorite play, my favorite play. It should be everyone's favorite play, Mike. It is back. It's not banned. We're keeping it for another year. I love how passionate the reports were coming out about Jeffrey Lurie and Jason Kelsey. I mean, they were laying down the law, expletive sayings and phrases that Jeffrey Lurie was having about the Tush Push. Mike, I couldn't be happier that this play is not getting banned just yet. Give us one more year. Give us one more year. Then you can maybe change the defense. You can't tell me you weren't thrilled to hear that it was back.
Yeah, thrilling, great. I mean, again, I never said that I want I never said I want the play outlawed. I said if I was a objective observer, which I am, I think the play should have been outlawed. But I didn't ask for it to be outlawed. I never said I want it gone. I just said if I was not covering the Eagles and I was just covering the league and they said, watch this play, what do you think? I would say the play is not fair. I didn't say I want it gone. I never said that. And quite frankly, I am over the Tush Push. I wish it was gone so I never have to hear about it again. Like, enough already with the Tush Push. Like, they run this play. It works for them. Well, okay, it's here. People got so up in arms about this thing. It's like, move on with your life. They can get a first down. They can get an inch. They don't need the freaking Tush Push.
I love it. I just love it's the whole conversation. I just am so fascinated by with the Tush Push because it's 1 yard. Everyone has an opportunity to do it. It's become so divisive to talk about the Tush Push, and in the NFL, in those circles, it's fascinating to me. So
I don't understand why more teams don't try to do it. I am intrigued to see if more teams now say we are going to try to implement. But listen, one of the things that the Eagles have said is it's not a play that everybody can do. Everyone's like, well, why doesn't everybody do it? Maybe they can't do it. Not everybody's quarterback is Jalen Hurts. I mean, we hear ad nauseum why it works. Hurts is a very big, strong quarterback. A lot of these quarterbacks are not as big and strong as him, and these teams do not want to risk their quarterback, crowd surfing in a pile of, giant mass.
Well, the Philadelphia Eagles do. It's back. You're going to see it again next year. Mike,
I wish you wouldn't have brought it up. You ruined my day. I didn't want to hear about the tush push ever again.
And that was the whole point of, and we're back on Nuggets. That means Nuggets are back. If that ruined your day, we're back.
All right, that's today's Nuggets. They're brought to you by The Hub, gear that works as hard as you do. All right, Nuggets, we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
All right, there you go. Knicks Nuggets today here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill, and of course, we got so much more. Another hour to go. Phillies make a tweak to their lineup today. I will tell you who moved where and potentially why coming up next on the Sports Bash. Plus, the text board has a bunch of stuff on it. If you want to text in now, Phillies questions up against Spencer Strider tonight. This big Philly series, we'll preview that and more. Final hour of the show next. All right, 5 o'clock, driving you home. I'm Mike Gill, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. How's everybody doing? Hope you're having a good Tuesday, back from the vacation, holiday, whatever you did this weekend. Hope you had a good one. We are here till 6. Give us your thoughts, 609-403-0973 on the text board. We'll punch you up. So, Phil's tonight against the Braves. Everything that this Phillies team does gets scrutinized, as it should. They have failed the last 3 seasons to win the World Series when they have been to the playoffs. So when you get to the playoffs 3 times and you're expected to get back to the playoffs, you will always get looked at, right? We will look at the team. We will look at the team. We will look at the team. Big picture. At Memorial Day, right? Memorial Day Monday is a big picture type of day. What is your big picture outlook for the Phillies? 609-403-0973. In other words, where do you think this team can get to? Is it you think they'll win the World Series? They can get to the World Series, but they're not good enough. Quite frankly, if they get to the World Series, they're probably good enough because I think the National League is deeper than the American League. Are they a wild card team? Are they a division team? Are they an NLCS team? Where do you ultimately think this team can go? 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. Because everything's big picture with this team, right? This season is all about trying to figure out if this core group of guys, Harper, Schwarber, Castellanos, JT Realmuto, Alec Bohm, Bryson Stott, Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, that crew, Ranger Suarez, Trey Turner, can this group of core Phillies, Brandon Marsh, win a World Series title? And if they cannot, what are they lacking? What is it that this team is lacking? We know it's bullpen. So I get these questions. Okay, they need bullpen help. Is it imperative to fix, because they need a bullpen arm, and our poll question is up at Mike Gill Show. You can vote over there. Let's get that back out there. We'll let people vote again and kind of spin that back into the universe here. Right now, if you need to make one trade, 79% right now are saying it's a bullpen arm. 14% are saying upgrade center field, and 3% are saying upgrade over Kepler. So my question would be this. You can't trade your way to all of those upgrades. You probably need 2 bullpen arms. So, and by the way, somebody just voted and it switched the bullpen arm to even a bigger percentage. So we see what everybody's thinking here. They want a bullpen arm. So this is what I would break down for you in this matter. Let's kind of break this down. I think you need 2 bullpen arms. Are you trading for 2 bullpen arms? Probably not. Probably, maybe. Now, I don't want to say probably not. I think there's a possibility that you could try, but can you get 2 high-end bullpen arms? That's what I think you really have to ask. The center field upgrade, I think you're either sticking with Marsh and Rojas or you're going to see Justin Crawford. That's, to me, how they tackle the center field position. The question is, though, can you just throw Justin Crawford in the middle of a pennant race who has no major league experience? The guy has ripped up AAA pitching, so he is deserving of a shot. But now you're really taking a shot throwing this over to a guy with no big league experience, which, hey, I'm okay with. I'll take the shot, throw him out there, see what happens. And you probably want to do that sooner than later, right? You probably want to get him more major league experience now than just waiting and waiting and waiting. And then the left field thing over Kepler. Can you, if you are making a big trade, if you are taking your big swing, what assets are you using to make the deal? Because the bullpen arm, I think you're going to need to use an asset. Center field, you have an option in your farm system. Left field, if you want to upgrade Kepler, you have to go outside the organization. That's another piece. Now can you get creative? I can throw Mick Abel in the bullpen. Is that something they want to do? I don't rule it out. We've talked to Todd Zalecki, we've talked to Bob Wankel, we've talked to different Phillies people. Could Mick Abel be an option to help fix your bullpen? I don't know. Could that be one of your bullpen arms? I don't know. I think the Phillies have been pretty clear about not wanting to use Andrew Painter in the bullpen. But would they do it in the playoffs? I don't know. There's a lot of questions here as we hit Memorial Day. What's the biggest question out there still looming as you've watched this team now up to Memorial Day weekend?
Mike, if I can bring you back to last summer and draw a little bit of a parallel here. Last year, the Phillies acquired 2 bullpen arms, Carlos
Tanner
Estevez
Banks.
and Tanner Banks.
Yes.
If you acquire 2 players comparable to those guys from last year, is that good enough?
Good question. If I got a Carlos Estevez, I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, there's not too many players that are better than Carlos Estevez, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then another Tanner Banks. The question is, if I got another Tanner Banks, who is he usurping from the bullpen, from the rotation, from the bullpen?
I would assume
either
Ruiz or Hernandez.
If you had a second Tanner Banks, is he really better than Ruiz or Hernandez?
Well, again, it's about comparable. It's about the idea of, are we just adding another guy for depth? Are we adding another guy because we have more confidence in that person versus Ruiz or Hernandez?
I can't say that I'm like overly confident in Tanner Banks. He's pitched well recently here. He's pitched in some higher profile situations. He has been pretty much a journeyman type of pitcher throughout his career. If they went out and got another Tanner Banks-esque pitcher, would he be any better than what you already have? Maybe. I mean, Ruiz and Hernandez, I don't trust at all.
Right.
Those two guys, at this point, I'm already to the point where I'm saying I don't need to see Hernandez or Ruiz anymore to make to talk myself into, oh, okay, this guy's pretty good. Both of those guys lack consistency, lack command. They are what they are. They're guys who are fine for a regular season, pitching against the Pirates and the Rays, and you can use them on those nights. You can't use those guys in playoff series.
No, you can't. But if you go back to those Phillies teams in 08, 9, 10, not every guy in that bullpen was Ryan Madsen, but you had guys like Scott Air and Clay Condrey and others who, when they came into the game, you weren't like rolling your eyes saying, here we go again, like you do with Hernandez and Ruiz. So if you get maybe not 2 elite players in the bullpen, maybe one guy who's high level, an Estevez comp, and then another guy who's at least better than Hernandez and Ruiz, you're probably feeling better about the bullpen, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're pretty tied to the fact right now that Romano is going to be your closer. And I don't know that they're going to find a better option.
The only guy might be Mason Miller.
If they got Mason Miller, then yes, he becomes your closer. And then the question with that is, how effective is Romano if he's not closing? Those are things you have to keep in mind, too. When you remove a closer from the closer's role, how does that diminish them pitching in non-save situations? I mean, I think you still got to take the shot if you can get Mason Miller for a price that you feel comfortable with. But you also then have to worry that Romano becomes less effective as an eighth-inning guy than he is as a closer.
The problem is that you can say that with anyone, though, because if you brought in somebody, right, like we mentioned Ryan Helsley recently, right? If you bring in another team's closer, right, and you tell that guy, well, you're not the closer anymore, well,
good point.
Are you wasting them?
That's what happened last year. They brought in Estevez, and then that kind of ruffled some feathers to Jeff Hoffman.
So you need to improve the bullpen. So whose feelings are you willing to hurt more? The person who's already on your team, Romano, or the guy you bring into your team?
Yeah. Now, listen, Jeff Mosher just sent me a text, and I see it. Like, it's another thing you got to bring up is come playoff time. But this is another, I think, wrench in the wheel. Come playoff time, you only need 4 starters, which means somebody goes to the bullpen, and everybody just assumed it's Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez has been one of your best starting pitchers over the last 3 starts, right?
Yeah.
So everybody just thinks it's a fait accompli that he's the guy that's going to go to the bullpen. But if I'm Ranger Suarez, I'm a free agent, and I'm thinking, wait a second, why am I going to the bullpen? What have I done wrong, right? And it's well for the betterment of the team. What if Nola comes back and he's as poor as he's been in his first 9 starts?
Or if he's just mediocre. What if he finishes the rest of the year with, I'm just looking at a number, a 4 ERA, and he's
If he gets to a 4
pitcher.
ERA, that means he's pitched brilliantly.
No, I mean 4 for the rest of the year, not combining the first part of the year. I meant like if he comes back June whatever, and he pitches 20 starts the rest of the year, and he's a 4 ERA the rest of the way, you're not starting him over the other 3 guys.
I don't know that 4 is bad enough. I think 4 is about where he's constant.
You need to be 4
Well,
5.
he's been around 4, 3, like upper 3s the last couple of years. I mean, if he's in the 4, it sounds like he's settled in a little bit. Now, Ranger, for instance, okay? Ranger Suarez is 3-0 in 4 games. His first start was not great. But since then, I mean, he has been excellent. His last 3 starts, he is 3-0 with, a ERA of his whip is 1.12. His ERA is 3.70. Now, his last 2 starts, his last 14 days, he's got a 1.98 ERA and a whip of 1.1. His strikeouts are 12, 13 innings pitched, so he's getting about a strikeout per inning. I mean, Ranger right now has been a solid starting pitcher for you. Now, Christopher Sanchez did not pitch well his last time out. Now, not that I'm saying he would be booted, but you have...
But he was a guy last year that you specifically started a home game in the postseason because you knew he was a much better home pitcher than road pitcher. So if you have a situation where, let's say Wheeler is your game 1 starter, as we all expect, and Luzardo is number 2, and you're going on the road for game 3, who are you starting, Suarez or Sanchez? I think the history speaks for itself.
Well, the history speaks that Nola is going to get a start in the playoffs. Does it not?
Well, I'm going off of just Suarez and Sanchez for this, what I just asked you.
Suarez against Sanchez. I don't know. Sanchez has such a small sample size of success. He has 1 year.
Yeah,
Last year he came out on the scene, and you were like, where the hell did this guy come from?
But last year there was a distinct between road versus home. That's why they started him in the home
game. Yeah, and this
game
year it's flipped.
That's true.
This year he's better on the road than he is at home.
But it's not as crazy of a difference as it was last year. Like, it was like a 3-run difference, I think, last year. I have to pull it up exactly again.
Yes, he was significantly better at home last year, which is why he pitched
the home
game against the Mets instead of the road game.
So, again, if you go to this year, if you're going on the road, name whoever team you want. I'm probably going with Ranger Suarez over Sanchez in that situation. And now you have to decide if you know you're going to start Ranger for a game and you're saying, well, what's more important? Is it Aaron Nola's history or is it that Sanchez having the better year?
Sanchez having the better year is interesting because last year he had the more consistent year because Suarez got hurt.
Right.
So if Suarez didn't get hurt and he had just pitched well all year, we won't know. That's, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to see what their mindset would have been had Suarez gone toe-to-toe with, because the two of them at the All-Star break, they both made the All-Star game. They both were, like, in the Cy Young conversation. So it was hard to see how those two would have separated themselves had Suarez not got hurt last year.
It's true. So then we get back to the Nola question, which is, if Nola isn't good enough, do you kick him to the bullpen or do you kick Sanchez to the bullpen?
I quite frankly have a hard time seeing either one of them go to the bullpen.
Well, someone's got to go.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. And then today, Rob Thompson said Painter will throw tomorrow and Abel will throw on Friday. So those two guys are waiting in the wings saying, well, what about us?
Yeah.
And they've already said, and today Thompson said, Painter will be a July-ish call-up. So about 4 more starts you're thinking for him down. He's been pitching like once a week.
Pretty much.
It seems like he's pitching not every 5 days.
They're spreading him out.
Yeah, it's like he pitched last Wednesday. He's going to throw Wednesday again. So they're letting him have 2 extra days rest, it seems like, every single time that he has pitched.
Which goes back to the conversation you and Bob Wankel had on Friday when you guys were talking about, do they go to a 6-man rotation when Painter comes up? And the way they're handling Painter, it's starting to sound like he might not be there every 5 days when he comes up.
Real quick on Sanchez, by the way. At home, he's got a 3.41 ERA and a 1.13 whip. On the road, he's got a 2.88 ERA. His whip is 1.4. He's actually got a higher whip on the road. At home, he's got 42 strikeouts in 29 innings And on the road, he's got 23 strikeouts in 25 innings. So while his ERA is better, all his other numbers are better at home.
So it almost like they cancel each other out.
Yeah, but it's not, as you said, last year it was pretty drastic.
extreme.
The splits for home and road for Christopher Sanchez last year were much, much different. It was to the point where the Phillies made him pitch the game at home instead of on the road come playoff time. So yeah, last year at home he was 7-3 with a 2.21 ERA and a 0.9 WHIP, and on the road he had a 5.02 ERA and a 1.6 WHIP. I mean, those splits are outrageously different.
Yeah.
So
I knew it was like a 2-3 run difference.
I don't know that these splits change your mind if you're the Phillies to say, hey, because here's the question. I'm assuming let's assume the Phillies win the division. You're going to get the first 2 games at home.
Right.
You pitch in Wheeler in game 1.
Yep.
Pitching Luzardo in game 2.
That's what I said. Yep.
So now Sanchez almost has to go on the road unless he didn't pitch in game 3 or 4 and you held him for down the road, which I can't imagine you're going to do either. So maybe it's Sanchez. It's the guy that gets pushed to the bullpen if they don't want to pitch him on the road. And I don't see why his numbers are suggesting that, but his whip is higher on the road than it is here.
The other question of all this is, if it is a playoff game and you have no Jose Alvarado, who do you feel better about coming out of the bullpen in a big moment of a playoff game? Christopher Sanchez or Ranger Suarez?
Well, Suarez has done it.
True. But is he the best option just because he's done it?
It's a tough one, man. I mean, I like Sanchez a lot, but he doesn't have a huge track record. That's the problem. Nola has the track record.
He does.
You throw that into the mix because he has, pitched a wild card game against the Cardinals, shut them out. Pitched a lot of big games in September to clinch for the Phillies to get them to some playoffs. So Nola is almost like he is out of sight, out of mind right now.
That's why I went to Sanchez Suarez because, again, no Alvarado, right? Alvarado's gone. He ain't coming back for the playoffs. So if your one lefty in the bullpen is Strahm and your other one is Banks, well, don't you want your third one to be either Sanchez or Suarez? So then you got to make the decision. Mm-hmm. That's how I'm at least looking at it.
609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. That's the text board. You can get involved over there. A couple texts coming in here. Mike, what's up, fellas? Hope the holiday was good. It was good. Thank you for asking. As I said, the schedule was kind to the Phillies playing those bum teams, yet as Mike McGarry said, this race is going to go down to the wire, and both the Mets and Phillies should be cautious about the Braves now that Acuna is back. Tough series, but good test for the team up and coming. That's Monday, a Mets fan. Now, I'm glad you brought that up, Marcus. One, the Phillies did just clean up on bum teams, but that's what you're supposed to do. You got to clean up on these teams. You can't lose 2 and 3 games when you're playing Colorado and Oakland or whatever the hell they're called, Athletics. But to that guy's point, the Phillies are playing the Braves tonight. They could beat the Braves 2 out of 3 or even sweep them. The Braves would be double-digit games behind you. They're 8.5 games out. But at the same time you're playing the Braves, you see what the Mets schedule looks like the next month? They play the White Sox tonight. Their next series against the Rockies. Then they play the Dodgers. Then they play the Rockies again. And then they play the Nationals. So the Mets, who just they had the lead. The Phillies just cleaned up on the Rockies and the A's. Well, you passed the Mets. Well, now they are getting to play the Rockies and the White Sox and the Nationals. So they have a shot now to kind of re-jump you here if they can. So, yes, you're right about that, Marcus, is you're playing all these bum teams. But you know what? That's baseball. Over 162, the schedule kind of plays out to where, hey, we soften up our schedule. Now they soften up their schedule. The one thing the Phillies did that now the Mets have to do is they have to clean up against the White Sox, the Rockies again, and the Nationals. Now they do play the Dodgers in there for 4, so they do have a little bit of a 4-game, challenge with the Dodgers. But the other 3 series are playing against 3 of the worst teams in baseball: the White Sox, the the Rockies twice, and then the Nationals. So, yes, it is a good opportunity for the Mets now, as they're 3.5 back, to try to get themselves back into the mix.
I always hate the argument though about oh, you just beat a bunch of bad teams, because it's like, well, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's like if the Phillies didn't win 6 out of 7 against the Rockies in athletics, we begin here ripping them, right? So when they beat them, we can't give them credit for it. Like, at some point we gotta just say, look, schedule's a schedule.
It is. I mean, and listen, you'll never get credit for beating the bad teams. You only will heal grief if you lose to them.
Right.
So if you lost to Colorado, now they beat Colorado all 7 times they played. They can't do anything more than that. Hey, played us 7 times, beat them 7 times. Would you like to sweep the A's? Sure. You're not sweeping every single team every single time you play them. But if you take 2 out of 3, you did your job. The Phillies won 9 straight. They lost the game. By the way, it was a winnable game, and it's disappointing that you lost that game on Sunday. To be honest, I mean, yeah, you should have swept that team.
And frankly, if Rojas doesn't get thrown out at the end of the game, who knows how that game ends?
Would you have stole that bag there?
No.
I mean, I don't mind him stealing the base, but I think they could have picked a different pitch. I think it was very obvious that he was going there.
I just felt.
I don't know if that's on him. Does he have the green light to go when he wants to go?
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know how much liberty they give him with anything.
Yeah.
He is a guy who has made a lot of bad decisions.
I don't know that Rojas gets the right of way on anything.
I don't think Rojas has ever been told he has the green light in his life.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Got some text messages that will continue to run down. Also, I want to get into Sham Charania was on the Pat McAfee show talking about the Sixers with the 3rd overall pick, and he adds something to the mix that is pretty interesting when you talk about this 3rd overall pick. Plus, I want to get into this article from Adam Aronson from Philly Voice. He has a couple of players that he thinks the Sixers could target in a trade. So we'll throw those out there as well. Adam Aronson, Philly Voice, will pick at his column for a minute here on the other side. More Sports Bash coming up. 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video on the Twitter X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. All right, 529 Sports Bash. I'm Mike Gill. What's up? So, Memorial Day weekend came and went. Here we are, less than a month to the NBA draft now. The last couple of years, the Sixers have been eliminated right about this point, right around Memorial Day. OKC's up 3-1. They won last night. And the Knicks came back off the mat. They're down at Indiana, so the road team has won every game in that series. And it'll be Knicks and Pacers tonight on 97.3 ESPN. The Sixers sitting around and watching, but that doesn't mean they are not active right now. As Shams reports today on the Pat McAfee show, interesting stuff here that Shams puts out there, which he states. Now, last week we had Kevin Pelton on the show, and he said to us, hey, listen, the Sixers don't have to worry about teams calling them because Daryl Morey will be on the phone. He will be actively making calls. But as Shams said today on the Pat McAfee show, the Sixers will be getting a lot of calls about that pick.
Listen, if you have a chance to get Giannis Antetokounmpo, you have to look at something like that. Pick number 3 is Philadelphia. I think their goal is to draft at that pick. I think there's about 3 players they like at number 3, but they're going to get a ton of calls on number 3. That's a team with Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George. They're trying to win the
suck, right?
well.
I don't know enough about the NBA. The Sixers are terrible. Not supposed to be.
They need Joel Embiid to be healthy on the floor.
McAfee, easy there, pal. Just ripping them. Yeah. No, McAfee's right. They stunk this year. They were horrible. I said it's the worst season in the history of the franchise. He's not wrong about that, but they will be getting a lot of calls. The question is, are they getting calls about the pick or the players or both? Well, Daryl Morey have to consider all of that stuff, but he tells Pat McAfee, this is interesting, because there was a conversation about Embiid playing in the Olympics, and this has been debated a lot. You know, because Embiid, people say you got to trade Embiid. Embiid's not getting traded. He has basically no value until he gets back out on the floor and shows teams that he can play. But this was something interesting that Darius Butler threw into the conversation.
Great player.
He wanted to win gold, though.
MVP, I understand all that.
He was born
and raised in Omaha. Yeah, he did for our country.
No, I'm not saying he
picked our country.
He's qualified to be on the team, but we're talking about trusting the process. How many years and how many times have he been healthy in the second or in the finals and for his own team?
Well,
he's getting paid max money for the team.
He has never MVP. He has never had a fully healthy playoff run. And just think about that.
Never had a fully healthy playoff run. So as Butler was saying, he shouldn't have played in the Olympics there. A lot of people have made that. Listen, it's all hindsight of he wanted to play in the Olympics to get around other great players. He wanted the opportunity to win a gold, win a championship, win something. You know, people have said Embiid has never won anything. He has won an Olympic gold. He was not a big part of that team. So I'm not going to sit here and say, man, he gained a lot from that experience. Quite frankly, I didn't have a problem with him playing on the team because I was hopeful that it would help him gain experience in terms of being around other great players. That did not work out in terms of he couldn't get on the floor. Now, if he would have played this year, as Shams Charania points out, when he is healthy, he is a guy that you can win a championship with.
To me, it's like he's so great when he's healthy, and that's what, if you're the Sixers, if you can get Joel Embiid to be fully healthy, you have a chance to compete for a championship. That's really all your season rides on. And so we'll know very soon, how does his offseason go? Does he have any setbacks? And if he doesn't, how does he look going into the season?
Yeah, when you have him on the floor, you have a chance to win championships. I know not everybody believes that, but there are only so many MVP quality players in the league. The Sixers have one of them. Right? The Sixers have one of the few MVP level players in the league. Whether you like that or not, it might infuriate you that that's the case. But he is one of them. Newsflash, he won the MVP 2 years ago. They have one of those guys. They need to get him on the floor. All right, Adam Aronson covers the Sixers for Philly Voice. He had a couple of offseason players to target in a trade, okay? couple of the names that draw some interest from me. Sam Hauser from the Celtics. Would you have any interest in Sam Hauser from the Celtics? He's the guy that can shoot, something the Sixers have a big problem with, guys who can hit the three. He is a very, very quality three-point shooter. Your face says no.
What is he doing except for shooting threes? Wait, was he Ersan Ilyasova all over again? He just stands at the corner and shoot threes?
Hey, he helped the Celtics win a championship. It seems like that worked for them.
Well, the Celtics are a differently built team.
Yeah, but the Sixers are trying to build a team similar to the team that won the championship.
I get that, but just because a guy works well on one team doesn't mean he works on everybody else.
Okay, so you're saying no is essentially what you're saying. I disagree with you wholeheartedly. I think he would be a tremendous fit for this team. He is exactly the kind of guy that they need. He is a kind of a stretch 4, 6'8". He's got size. He does one thing well. He shoots the three. They could use a guy like him who shoots 40% from three. Doesn't have to play a lot of minutes. He can come in. I think would be a tremendous fit for this team.
Listen, if they got him, I hope you're right. I just don't look at that as a guy that's going to make that big of a difference for this team.
I'd have to disagree wholeheartedly there. This is exactly the kind of guy that this team has lacked a lot. A guy who can catch, shoot, threes. That's his job. That's what you do. He's an athletic wing player as well. Long kind of guy on the wings. Definitely. For years, I've talked about this team has just not had this type of player, a gritty three-point shooter. They just haven't had this guy. They've completely lacked a guy who specializes in this role. So when I saw that name from Adam, I said 2 points for you, Adam. He gets the 2 points. I
don't get the 2 points.
You didn't like the trade. You don't like the fit.
I'm just saying, you didn't.
Like right now, my point is, he would the trade that he pulls. I didn't even look at the trade. In my head, I'm saying he would be an upgrade over Kelly Oubre. Like yes. Oubre is an erratic 3-point shooter who's about the same size as Hauser, like both 6'8", long, athletic wing players. But Oubre is just too inconsistent from three. He's better at putting the ball on the floor. But the Sixers have enough of those guys now. They've got Max who can do that. You've got Grimes who can do that. When Paul George hopefully is healthy, he can, he's a guy.
So you're saying the Sixers have too many redundancies that Kelly Oubre has lost his value.
Well, the whole point of the Sixers when you have Embiid is that he generates so much attention. If you had a guy like Sam Hauser who can catch and shoot 40% from three, that's what this team has lacked. A guy who can benefit from the lack of attention that he will get because of Embiid. Now, of course, I could hear everybody in their cars shouting at the radio, Embiid's never on the floor. Well, guess what? Then if he's not on the floor, this Hauser thing would probably not work all that well. He mentions the Sixers would get Sam Hauser in exchange for Lonnie Walker IV, a second-round pick, a pick swap, another pick swap, and the Bulls would get Kelly Oubre. So it's kind of a 3-team deal that he's mapping out there. All right, another guy that he maps out that the Sixers could possibly go after is Obi Toppin. Are you watching any of these playoffs, you would see he's kind of turned himself in from a lottery pick. Now he's kind of an energy guy.
He's a nice role player.
Doesn't do much for me, but a lot of threes. Shoots the three pretty well all of a sudden.
See, I like Toppin more than Hauser because he does something I don't think Hauser does as well, which is I think Toppin can get some rebounds and play some defense.
Yeah, I mean, Hauser definitely lacks those intangibles. I think he's a decent, he's very athletic on the wing. But Toppin, who was kind of a bust as a lottery pick with the Knicks.
Toppin was supposed to be this, big-time double-double machine coming out of college. Remember, he's in the dunk contest.
Yeah, very athletic guy.
And now he's turned into a very good role player where you're saying, hey, come in here for 15, 20 minutes, grab a bunch of rebounds, hit some shots, and be a role player.
By the way, in his 2 seasons in Indiana, 40% from three last year, 36% from three this year. He has turned himself into a pretty darn good three-point shooter. And you're right, he doesn't play a lot of minutes. He only plays about 20 minutes a game, but he's active. If you watch these games in these playoffs, he is active.
I feel like every game he's got 5 to 6 rebounds. Every game.
He had 10 rebounds in the game against the Knicks. What was this game against the Knicks? What was this? His last 5 games, he had 10 rebounds against the Knicks. that must have been game 1, I'm assuming. In game 2.
What was the date?
The 21st of May.
It sounds like the first game.
Yeah. He had 10 rebounds in the first game. In the second game, he had 2 rebounds, and then the last game he had 4. But, yeah, he doesn't play a lot of minutes. He only played – in 14 minutes, he had 4 rebounds, right? So the other game, he had 20 minutes. He grabbed 10 boards.
Listen, what is something the Sixers have needed for a very long time? A guy who can grab some rebounds when Embiid's feet are glued to the floor.
I have some interest. And, again, the trade that he puts out there would include Kelly Oubre. So it looks like he also agrees with me that Oubre is just not a real great fit for this team.
If you told me that one of the moves this offseason was you got rid of Kelly Oubre, you brought in Obi Toppin, so that means you're saving money, and you get a player who probably is a better fit for the team.
Again, this is Adam Aronson's column over at Philly Voice on 5 players the Sixers could target in a trade. Isaac Okoro from the Cavs.
I'm less interested in that.
Not interested.
I don't see how he really fits with this. What are you saying, that he's a guy who can come in and do what exactly?
Shoots a 3. I mean, another guy, high percentage from 3, 37% this year, 39% last year, 36% the year before that. So he is a 3-point guy. The problem with him is smaller. He's more of a guard, more of a kind of a tweener, 6'5". The other 2 guys intrigue me more because they're bigger, but another guy that can shoot the 3. So, again, he's trying to flip a guy
who
in
doesn't
Oubre for – now, in this trade, it's Okoro for Jared Butler, Ricky Council, Andre Drummond with the 3 guys he's sending out with some picks. All these are 3-team deals.
I feel like I'm getting a little lost here in these 3-team deals, but I appreciate the effort here.
The next guy that he has is Valanciunas from Sacramento, looking for a chance to find a backup to Embiid.
Now, do you feel like Valanciunas is an upgrade over Drummond?
Drummond was hurt all of last year for the most part, and when he did play, he was not. I think Bona is actually a pretty good piece. Do I think Valanciunas is an upgrade over Drummond? Not if Drummond is the healthy Drummond. I think he almost feels like who was the guy they had, the dunker, that played on those Clippers teams?
The dunker?
He played on all those Clippers teams, the backup center.
Oh, well, DeAndre Jordan?
Yeah, DeAndre Jordan.
He was the starting center.
Yeah, well, I said he was the backup to for the Sixers.
You meant for the Sixers.
Yeah. When he was with the Sixers. DeAndre Jordan, it looked like he just went from high-flying dunker to 2 flat tires. He just went from 0 to 60.
He was horrible.
Drummond feels like, and he's not Drummond's not an old guy. He looks like an old guy, but he's not an old guy.
It's facial hair.
Valanciunas is just a tough dude. I mean, yeah.
Could the team maybe just use a tough dude?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like Hartenstein right now for OKC. You made the comment last year, Mike, that you believed OKC could be an NBA Finals team because they added a guy like Hartenstein. So is Valanciunas the kind of guy that can be for Philadelphia?
What has Oklahoma City got knocked out last year? What did they add?
Toughness.
There you go.
That's what I'm saying.
And the last guy he mentions is George Niang. Which I don't think I have a lot of interest in bringing Niang.
We've seen that already. I like Niang more than Okoro, but I'm not exactly getting excited about that.
To me, Niang, he's a good shooter. Okay, so but he's just not very athletic. He just did nothing defensively. He just, and he can shoot this year for 3, 41%. Last year, he shot 37%, 40%. In Philadelphia, he shot 40%. The problem is in the playoffs, those guys don't get the same. Now, you might say, what about Hauser? He doesn't get the same. Hauser has won a title.
Right, if you told me I could have Niang or Hauser, those were my only 2 options, I'm going with the younger guy, Hauser.
Much more athletic. Niang just has no athleticism.
He's a nice guy. He seems like a good teammate.
Yeah, he seems like a very good teammate. He seems like a guy that you want on your team. I just don't know that he fits here. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. And, of course, you can download the app in the Apple Store wherever you get your apps. And that's all powered thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. What else we got today? What did I watch?
You got a new show?
Yeah, I don't even know the name of it. What did I did watch the end of the American Manhunt on Osama bin Laden.
Okay, so now that
watch
you're
the
at
end of that.
At the end of that, are you kind of like, all right, I'm glad I watched it?
Oh, absolutely. I said it. I said after the first episode, it was riveting.
Well, it doesn't mean the rest of the episode is riveting.
It was very, very. In fact, my father, I went to breakfast with my dad on Friday, and he said he heard me say it on the air, so that he went and watched it and thanked me for the recommendation.
Wow.
It was very, very good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. The American Manhunt, Osama bin Laden. First 30 minutes, it's, recounting September 11th.
Right.
And then after that, it goes into them basically behind the scenes, all the talks about trying to – it took 10 years to find the guy.
Right.
10 years to find this guy.
A bunch of hit and misses.
Yeah. So it was riveting, though. Like, even though you know the ending, they found the guy in the show who actually took him out, like, to get that guy on camera, right? Some guy from, like, Butte, Montana was the guy who ended up getting him.
Yeah, there was those identities. That's actually, did they talk about in the documentary how controversial it was that their identities became known? Because those guys' identities were never supposed to become known.
Well, he was in it.
Navy SEALs.
Yeah, a lot of the guys that were in it, Panetta, who was like the head of the, I think, FBI or CIA at the time, and there was a lot of behind-the-scenes people that were in the documentary. So definitely go check that out. I was watching a show last night. I don't remember. It's Steve Carell's in it. And I guess he gets divorced from his wife, and then he starts dating a younger woman, and they go on vacation with all these people that they're friends with. Tina Fey's in it as well. Anybody know what I'm talking about?
I mean, I'm sure I could look it up and figure it out.
Yeah. Tina Fey, Steve Carell. There's another guy in it that was in he was in a show that I just watched recently. Man, what was the name of There's another show where the guy was a CNN news anchor, and he was, like, up for murder. And he was, like, the whole show was him trying to, like, get his name free. He's in this show, too. I just don't know what his name is.
The Four Seasons?
There you go. The Four Seasons. That is the name of the show that we started watching last night. No Phils, man. No Phils last night. That's what happens when you get an off day. Steve Carell, Tina Fey. What's the other guy's name?
Well, now I got to pull up the IMDb.
He was in the show again. He was like a CNN anchor. That's what you put in. CNN anchor framed for murder. That's the guy. He's the actor.
Will Forte?
What's the show that he was in when he was the CNN anchor?
I'm just looking at the IMDb. I got to open.
It's like a one name that he was in.
We'll have to do some more research on this.
Yeah, this is. I mean, come on.
You can remember every show you've ever watched?
I'm so bad at remembering the names of the shows. Will Forte is the guy's name, right?
Forte.
Yeah.
Well, the one guy I pulled up. There's other guys on this show, but
he's not the guy that's in the show that I'm talking about. No. But he's in the show that I'm watching now.
Correct.
The Four Seasons.
I thought it was a guy who was on the Four Seasons you were asking me about.
The CNN news anchor.
So you're saying another show?
No, that's the boyfriend. It's his boyfriend. It's his boyfriend. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll figure it out. That's the show. But this guy's in this show, too. 4 seasons. All right. We'll get the Bet365 play of the day next on the Sports Bash. At 5:53, getting ready to get out of here. It's the Bet365 play of the day. How do we do on that Friday play?
Mike, it seems like it was so long ago, but yes, it still was a winner. You had the under in the Knicks-Pacers game. You are now 172, 112, and 1.
172, 112, and 1. I think I tweeted out on Friday my record and gave the little Jordan shrug, like making the threes, like in the it's like, I don't know, man. I just keep hitting these plays. I got another one for you. You ready? I got the little 2-play for you tonight. How about a little Phils? Going Phils tonight. Rangers Suarez on the mound. 8-0 on the run line since 2024 when Suarez starts. Go Phils tonight. And I'm going to go the Knicks tonight. I hope the Knicks lose, but can they cover? 2.5. I think it's the number. Let me update that. That was earlier today. Let me see if that has changed at all since when I wrote that down earlier.
Well, I know Naismith is cleared to play tonight. So that is
Indiana's 3.5. I think the Knicks covered tonight. But I hope the Pacers win. There you go. That's my Bet365 play of the day. Go Phils. A little Suarez start tonight. And I got the Knicks plus 3.5 against the Pacers. You can listen to that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Josh, that's it for me. I've had enough of this day.
You've had enough of me? Got it.
CC, very intrigued. Have a great night, everybody. Game night is up next. You got anything fun?
Just you, me, and Dupree.
Gotcha. Tomorrow, Stump the Sports Geek. Now, back by popular demand, we'll have a sports topic tomorrow.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you if we're going to go non-sports again.
Now, I wonder if George over here could answer my lead singer questions. That's possible. He said that's possible.
This is possible.
All right, that's it for me, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. By the way, people texting in, The Madness was the name of the show. The Madness. Have a great night.